I'm your host of this event along with Pia. Hey, Pia, how are you doing?
Hey, I couldn't hear you for a second, but you're good now.
Well, it's nice to see you here, and I'm really looking forward to hosting this fun event with you. This is the first of many events that we have been doing and that we're going to continue to do, where we're actually going to be hosting a live broadcast. And so we wanted to host this live broadcast just to make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more engaging for our audience. So to get started, I would love to know, where is everyone attending this event from? Let me know in the chat box to the right hand side of the screen. You should see a chat box on the right hand side, and I see a lot of people commenting right now. I see here's Dawn. She's from snowing in Washington, and we've got Irene, which is in Somerville, New Jersey, and Sue in Alabama, which is really cool. And Pia, whereabouts are you right now?
I am just outside of Chicago.
Okay. And I am actually in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which
Oh,
is
wow.
yeah. So it's actually 7 p.m. here, and I'm here right now, and it's really cool to be in this part of the world. But this is one of the amazing things about these events, is it brings crocheters and crafters from all around the world together on this live stream. So it's really nice to have everyone here. And we've got lots of people commenting. We've got Shannon from Arizona and Krista from Orlando, and all sorts of people. I'd love to say hi to everyone. So just keep commenting in the question box. Again, chat. Let's make this a little bit social. We're going to have a lot of fun today with this event. And so to get started, I'm going to go over a little bit of what's going to happen during this live stream, because it is the first time that we're hosting it. So I'll go over a little bit of housekeeping and some of the things that are exciting and new to this event. So the first thing I just want to mention is we've decided to add a photo booth to this page. So on the page that you're on right now, if you scroll down, you'll see that there is an image that says virtual photo booth. Okay, it says virtual photo booth, and there's two options. You can take out your phone, and on the right hand side you can scan with your phone the QR code, and that will take you to the photo booth app. Or you can, on the left hand side, simply click enter photo booth here, and then that will actually show you the photo booth as well. And it's a fun way to just take a photo of you at this event. You can see it on the screen right here, and overlaid on top are some of the projects you're actually making during this event. So it's a fun way to kind of engage with everyone. We'll share a lot of these photos later on with you, and you can actually email it to yourself as well. But I really love this, and I love the Polaroid style of it as well. So be sure to use the photo booth so that you can get your badge that shows that you attended this event. So that's a new addition. And then also, I want to just call attention to the fact that we are doing a yarn giveaway. And who doesn't love yarn? I love yarn. Yeah, I'm sure you love yarn. What's your favorite yarn, Pia?
Oh gosh, I can't actually say. I think legally I can't actually say that. No, I work with so many different yarn companies. It's impossible to pick a favorite. It's usually the yarn I'm working with right now. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Whatever's in my hands.
What's on your hook right now?
Oh, I'm just working a swatch. This is actually lemon peel stitch. Here, I'll show you guys. Hang on, there. This is lemon peel stitch. It's just alternating between single crochet and double crochet. And it's just it's a swatch for a video that's coming up. It's mindless, so I can do it while we're talking.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm really glad you said that, because that kind of segues perfectly into this entire event and why we created this entire event. Crochet anything with rectangles. This has got to be one of my favorite events that we've put on, and the favorite classes that we've actually filmed, because I think many of us start crocheting and we start with a simple rectangle or a simple square, and maybe that's a washcloth or a scarf or a blanket. And, there's something so nice about being able to mindlessly crochet, right? Sit back, relax, turn on the TV, listen to a podcast, maybe chat to someone in the room, or, do a live stream with hundreds of people. And,
I think I've gotten to the point where I can't watch TV if there isn't crochet or something in my hands, right? I just fall asleep if I don't have it.
It's a good motivation to get through a movie, right? Is you have keep your hands moving. You're a little bit more engaged. But, on the flip side, as nice as that is, as nice that it is to have a relaxing project, I think that at the same time, many of us reach a point in our crochet journey where you look around your house and you think, oh my gosh, there's only so many blankets that I can have, or there's only so many blankets that I can give away, or if it's not that, maybe it's just, you start to see pictures online of other projects that are kind of captivating you and interesting you and inspiring you in a certain way, but perhaps you just feel some hesitancy, or you've tried a more complicated project before and you've gotten frustrated with it. And
Right.
I know that's something I could really relate to when I got started with crocheting. And I shared a story in the newsletter the other day, about how when I actually started knitting, my mom was a knitting instructor. And I remember I came home one day and she had this beautiful cardigan on. And I thought, oh my gosh, I really want to make that. And
Yep.
so she kind of got me pepped up for it. And I went and I chose this beautiful alpaca yarn, and it was so soft and just really luxurious. And I spent, a decent amount of money on that yarn because I thought I'm going to look so good in this cardigan that I make. And, at first it was very simple. The arms were just rectangles, or the front and the back were just rectangles. And then I got into the increasing and the decreasing, and I started getting frustrated. And this was like maybe 18 years ago now. And that project is still a work in progress and still sitting in a bag. And it haunts me, partly because of how much I spent on that yarn, and partly because I really still love that pattern. But I've been telling myself I'm going to come back to it. And so what ended up happening was my mom, she was kind of consoling me, saying, okay, well, you want a cardigan, you want something more exciting. Why don't we work something up with just rectangles? And so she designed this really cool pattern of a shrug, and it was just simply 2 rectangles, one for the back and one for the hood. And I made that project, and it gave me so much confidence because I was still able to relax and do it every day after school. But it was cool to see how rectangles could come together in other projects and just give me a little bit more confidence. And so that's really where the inspiration for this class has come. It's the idea around, bringing something that you love about crochet, which is that sense of relaxation and peace that you get from crochet, but at the same time layering on some new skills, giving you some additional confidence, right, Pia?
Yes, it's always fun to learn something new. If you keep making the same thing forever and ever, I actually have when I first started, I made a decision never to make the same thing twice. So I never, ever in my entire crochet career have made the same pattern twice, except for when I have to do it to record the video of it. But I've never made the same blanket twice or the same scarf twice. I always have to do something different. We got a crochet question actually in the chat that I saw. Josephine asked, is medium for a worsted weight yarn? Yes. Actually, the numbers are ranges of yarn, and 4 is actually a fairly wide range that covers worsted and Aran, which are slightly different weights. Worsted's a little lighter, Aran's a little heavier. So short answer, yes. Long answer, sort of.
That's awesome. And oh, I think you might be muted, or I didn't hear you.
No, I didn't say. I think you froze for a second.
Okay, yeah, we were lagged a little. What I was going to say, that's a really common question that I see, is just kind of about different yarn weights and what yarn weight to use with different hook sizes. And on that note, what I will say is we are going to do some questions shortly. So if you have any questions whatsoever about this class and this summit, please go ahead and start entering the questions in the chat box. But it doesn't have to be just about these classes and this summit. You can also ask questions about anything. Maybe it's about choosing yarn or something entirely else, but start going ahead and entering in questions in the question box. We're going to answer those in just a second, but I want to just officially really welcome you to this event. Thank you for being here, and just let you know that I really hope that you enjoy these classes and that you're getting to set some time apart this weekend to just really focus on watching these videos. And as Pia said, building your confidence, learning a new skill. I think it's really impressive what Pia said, that she's never crocheted anything more than once. I honestly can't even imagine that. I think I admire
There's so
you.
many patterns to try and so many new techniques. How do you do the same thing again? It's like, I've done that already.
Okay. So I think that there's two categories, and I have a question for everyone on the live stream, right? So category one, I'm going to say is more like me. I'm a creature of comfort, and I like to just kind of crochet the same thing over and over again because it's relaxing to me. And while I do enjoy a challenge, I don't do it as often. And then there's category number two, which I'm going to say is Pia's category, which is always crocheting something new. And I really respect that. So which category do you guys fall into? One or two? Enter one or two in the question box, or in the comment box, I should say, as I'm really curious about that. And again, as you're entering questions and entering your comments, I'll just take a minute to go over a bit of the agenda. And then I'd love to do some questions with Pia. Pia, I'm so happy that you're here with us because you are absolutely the right person to have on the live stream. We've got both spectrums, 1 and 2 here, and so you'll be able to really help with a lot of the questions.
Great.
Now, as far as the format for this live event, we're going to keep it kind of organic, and we're going to start by answering some questions. As I mentioned, I'm going to go through any questions that come up, and there will be a question period at the start as well as at the end of the live broadcast. And in between, we have a lot of fun things planned for you. P and I are going to just casually chat about different crochet things, but then we're also going to showcase a number of really cool other crochet designers. And Lindsay, she is our fantastic instructor who actually has taught all of the classes in this video series that you are watching today. And she's going to be with us on a really amazing video interview and sharing some of her insight into how she got started crocheting and some of her favorite techniques. And then we have some other great crochet experts with us as well, who are going to recommend how they organize their yarn and all sorts of different things. And perhaps what I'm most excited about is we're actually doing what I'm going to call a virtual travel experience. Now, many of us have been really cooped up in our house lately, the last 2 years, or maybe haven't been able to travel as much. And so we're actually going to have Scotty join us, and she's going to take us to her wool farm, which is really, really cool. She'll give us a tour of her sheep and her animals. She'll talk a little bit about the process of shearing the sheep and how it actually turns into wool and then gets to your house into, the ability to make a sweater or whatever it is. And so I think that will be a really fun experience. And that's just our goal with this event. It's just to have fun. And so we want to put a smile on your face. And so after that, we'll talk a little bit more about questions. We might even go over some of my favorite color combinations with you. And we'll just, again, have a lot of fun with it. So how does that sound, Pia?
Sounds like fun to me.
Awesome. Now, let's go ahead and dive into some questions. Now, it's fun. I'm seeing actually a lot of ones and twos, but more twos, which I'm really surprised
Yay! My people!
That's exactly right. Well, I guess I better get working on some more patterns.
Yes, there you go. You just have to try more stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've inspired me, so I will. All right. Well, let's open it up for some questions here. So we first have a question from Josephine, and her question is, has anyone used Loops and Threads Eco Waves medium 4 weight yarn? This is what I'm using now. Have you ever used that before, Pia?
No, I haven't. I haven't actually used any Loops and Threads yarn. It's a definite hole and something I'm going to have to try soon.
Well, I think that this is one of the things that makes the live stream so fun and interactive is you get great ideas from people asking questions or suggestions. I've never actually used Loops and Threads myself either, although I've seen it a lot.
If anyone's Eco Waves, is that a cotton yarn by any chance? Because it sounds like either recycled or cotton yarn or some.
It's a good question.
I don't know. Yeah, let me look it up. Actually, now I'm curious.
Yeah, but I do love working with cotton. Actually, cotton.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite yarns to work with. Not everyone loves working with cotton though, because it can separate a little bit while you're working with it. But I personally really enjoy working with cotton. How about yourself, Pia?
I am mixed on cotton. I enjoy working with cotton, but not so much for wearables because of the stretch issue. Because
Mm.
when you wash cotton, it can tend to stretch out of shape a little bit, and I've had issues with that on items that I've made to wear. But I like cotton for around the house, like tablecloths and dish rags and stuff like that. I'm looking at this yarn. It is a polyester cotton acrylic blend. So it's mostly polyester and then 29% cotton and then 9% acrylic. And it looks like it's really loosely plied. So it's a bumpier yarn. And it looks like I would worry about it splitting when you're crocheting with it. So I think you have to be careful with that, but I think it'll give you a great texture. And I might use a slightly larger hook to give it room to expand as you're working with it because of the thick and thin aspect of it.
Oh, that's a really good piece of advice about using a different hook size. Do you want to talk a little bit more about using different hook sizes with yarn? As someone mentioned in the comments,
Yeah.
typically when you do buy a ball of yarn, there is a recommended hook size with that ball of yarn. However, I think it's also important to know that a lot of factors come into what
Yes.
hook to use with that yarn, and that you can actually get different effects by changing your hook size. So, do you want to talk about that just a tiny bit?
Well, there's a couple of things to look at when you look at that label. Don't just go with, oh, they said use this hook, so everybody should use this hook. Everybody gets different gauges with different hook sizes. I tend to crochet very loosely. So when I write a pattern, I actually specify a hook size that's 0.5 millimeter larger than what the
Mm.
hook I actually used is, because I know a lot of people don't check gauge and they tend to have more success with a larger hook. Look at the label and you'll actually see a gauge on there. And that says how many stitches per inch and how many rows per inch. That's a better guide to go by, because what the manufacturer is saying is that when you get this tightness, this many stitches and this many rows, we think that's when the yarn looks nicest. But that's just the manufacturer's opinion on what looks nicest in their yarn. You can get a drapier fabric that is more open and lacy if you use a bigger hook. You can get a tight, dense fabric for pot holders or the bottoms of slippers and amigurumi, like these little stuffed animals behind me. You want a tighter fabric so that the stuffing doesn't come out. So you use a smaller hook. So don't feel locked into using the hook size that's on the label. It's just a starting point, jumping off point, which is why gauge swatches are so important.
Well, so it's fun that you said gauge swatches are so important, because I do agree with you. They are very important, but I also think it's worth mentioning that they're very important, especially for certain kinds of projects, right?
Yes.
So
They're most important. I like to say gauge matters as much as size matters. If the size of the project is important to you, then the gauge is going to matter. If the size of the project is not important to you, then the gauge doesn't matter, except that it does affect the texture of the finished piece, and it does affect the amount of yarn you're going to need to use. So if you're very, very loose, just keep in mind you're going to have a much looser texture and you're going to need a lot more yarn.
And it's kind of fun to play around. It might just be a fun exercise for everyone's on the call. If you haven't done this so far, go grab a yarn from your yarn storage or for whatever you're working on and look to see what hook size it recommends. And then play around with going up and then down a few sizes just to see how the texture changes. And it's actually, with rectangles, is actually a great way to experiment with this, just to see the difference in textures, because it is quite a big difference. And you might prefer one or the other, and it just gives you a little bit of extra experience and confidence for maybe next time you come across a pattern and you understand how your unique tension works as you crochet a little bit better.
And if it's a yarn you're going to be using a lot, make a big enough gauge swatch that you can make something with it out of the rectangle. Because all of these ideas, a rectangle is a gauge swatch, right? It's just a very big one. So if you make a bigger one, you can make slippers out of it,
Yes,
Try
yes.
it
I
out.
love that idea. And again, this is why this class is so perfect for a lot of the things that we're talking about, and just in general, building your crochet confidence, because it allows you to practice in a lot of, I guess, very simple ways, but layering on new skills each time, and just letting you really get creative with the different aspects of crochet and imagining how you can turn a crochet rectangle or square into, I mean, it's so cool, into slippers or a tote. I mean, I think that's so fascinating that you can do so much with rectangles. And this is just, the sky's the limit. What we're sharing in this class is just kind of to get you started with your inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Pia, there was a great question that came in here from Susie, and she says, my tension is very tight. And Susie, I'm the same way. My tension is also very tight. And she says, any tips for loosening up?
Yes, this is probably the biggest tip that I have for intentionally modifying your tension. When you start a stitch, okay, when you're right here, pause, lift up your loop, make sure you have some wiggle room there, and then finish your stitch. This is called the golden loop. This loop that you pick up right here is called the golden loop. If you make it very, very tight and very, very small, you're going to have a lot of tension in your stitch and your row gauge is going to be much smaller. If you pick this loop up high, you're going to have a lot less tension and your stitch is going to be a lot taller. Do you see the difference in those two stitches I made right there just with that? So you can very intentionally practice pausing here and picking up this loop to the level that you want it to be at. And that will help you loosen up your stitches or tighten them up too.
And would you recommend that someone experiments with just simple single and double crochet to get started, or does it not really matter?
Yeah, I would, if you're working on adjusting your gauge, I would use just regular single crochet and then maybe try other stitches. But the other thing too is there's nothing wrong with just going up hook sizes. If you crochet tightly, just use larger hooks. You'll be fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I crochet loosely and I just use smaller hooks.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm definitely one of those crocheters who's always in my head. So when I'm crocheting, I'm thinking about a million different things. It's still relaxing, but my mind's going a mile a minute. And so I find my tension is so tight. And I find that it's not relaxing to me, fighting against my natural inclination to be tighter, because while those tips are very helpful and I can do them when I'm consciously thinking about them, I tend to just go into autopilot a little bit more. Yeah. And so going up that hook size really helps. So Susie, you might want to try that. Now, what we'll do is we'll take one more question and then, well, we had two questions. We'll take one more question here. And then the question after that was about choosing colors. And I want to spend a few minutes on choosing colors before we get into the really wonderful interview with Lindsay. Again, we will be taking more questions frequently throughout this call. It'll be about a 3-hour broadcast, an event that we're doing. So in the middle and the end, there'll be more chance for questions. So if you do have questions, please enter them in and we will get to them at some point during this broadcast. So the next question is from Jennifer. And Jennifer says, what do you use for wearables? Now, I'm not sure if Jennifer's talking about the yarn, specifically yarn. I assume so because we were talking about cotton earlier. So what type of yarn do you like to use for wearables?
If I want something lighter, I'll go with a cotton blend. Make sure that it's at least 50% acrylic or polyester so that it holds the shape better. But I tend to like wool, but that's because I'm also a spinner. So I tend to like working with wool a lot. And I like wool and nylon blends too, the type that you'd find in sock yarn.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And I find that what you said earlier makes a lot of sense with cotton. It doesn't have the best drape. I remember when I was first getting started, I made a hat, a toque out of cotton, and it stretched out too much and then I really couldn't wear it. And so I really like working with wool for that reason. It has a little bit more give and tends to have a nice drape.
I had a filet crochet butterfly pattern that I turned into a swimsuit cover up, and it looked gorgeous until I actually wore it on a wet swimsuit. Oh, and wow. Let's just say butterfly butt. That was pretty much the theme of that. And I wore it at the crochet conference too. So I like come out of the pool and I got butterfly butt. Yeah, that went in the garbage right after that.
Yeah, so picking the right yarn is important for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
especially for the different projects. And that's where the different experience comes into play, right? Both from knowing your tension, from choosing different yarns, and it all just comes from experimenting. And if you're in a category two like Pia, which is trying lots of new patterns, you'll get a lot of experience.
Mistakes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
those two. But that's what helps you learn, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you for that, Pia. And these have been really, really great questions. And again, we will continue to answer questions. Now, what I'd like to do right now is we had someone ask earlier or make a comment about picking colors. Let me see if I can find that. There we go. Susie says, "I'm terrible at choosing colors. Any tips?" So this is a favorite topic for me because color is definitely one of those things where it can really make or break a finished project. And that's how I feel. But I know that often I'll make a project, and if I'm really happy with the colors, I'm so much more generous on if I've made a little mistake or just like my overall emotional reaction to that project when I'm done, if I love how the colors come together. And at the same time, I'm definitely someone who naturally, I wouldn't say was the most gifted at combining colors. I often had quite a hard time with choosing colors. And so what we've done is actually, if you upgrade to the all access pass, the masterclass pass, which gives you lifetime access to everything, all the video classes and all the bonuses, we have a really cool color guide inside of there. But for those who are on the live broadcast right now, I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of just two of my favorite color combinations to give you some ideas of how I might go about combining colors and seeing a lot of the different ways that you can go about choosing colors as well. So Mike, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right now. So that might actually come up to prompt you. So give me 1 second. I'm going to start with this color combination. So Pia, can you just let me know, can you see this on my screen?
Yes, I can see it great.
Perfect. Okay. So one of my favorite ways to get inspiration for color combinations is really to just look at what other crochet designers or other crocheters are doing with their color combinations. That's the most direct example, but I don't just take inspiration from other crochet projects. You can also take inspiration from the landscapes you're in. So for example, the other day I was in the desert and the sun was setting and there was these really beautiful oranges and purples and kind of dark purples that combine together so beautifully that I never would have thought of that before, but seeing it in a different landscape kind of inspired me to explore those color combinations. So one of the best ways to get better at picking colors for your projects is just being mindful of your surroundings and what you find beautiful when you're out and about. And it might just be looking at someone's shirt or, someone's blanket project. Now, in this case, what we've done is put some color combinations. We put together 8 color combinations that I absolutely love and matched them back to yarn colors. And that's available in the All Access Pass, but I want to go through 2 of them with you right now. So this one in front of you is the Dainty Denim color combination. And you can see up top, we're pulling from a lot of different crochet projects that use this. And it's got 5 different colors, a seashell, a French gray, Cosmo, East Bay, and Cod Gray. And so you can see those down and below on the screen. Now, the interesting thing about working with color is you can work with 5 colors and have them turn out totally differently. And in the middle section, we try to demonstrate that. Let me see if I can actually zoom in here. So you can see right here, on the first image, you have even amounts of each color. But in the other images, you have different amounts of the color, and you can really work with color blocking in that way. And so I pulled up some of these patterns. Let me see here. This is one project by One Dog Wolf, and you can see she used the blue and the cream together, and she alternated that fairly evenly throughout the pattern, and that looks really nice. It's kind of like a nautical feel for that color combination. Now, at the same time, we can look at this other color combination right here. And it's the same base colors. It's got that light cream, the gray, a blue, and then a darker blue, but again, in different proportions. And so it looks very differently. And then I'll show you one last example of this color combination. I think this is so cute. I love how these colors pull together in this beautiful kind of pastel. And in this case, the blue is just an accent and the pink is more of a primary color. But I really like how these colors work together, and it gives you an idea of how all of these different colors pull together. Pia, do you have any suggestions for how you pick color or how you combine them in what amounts?
My favorite suggestion has always been to take a black and white picture or grayscale picture of the yarns that you have. And if you're looking at them online, you can usually pop them into a photo editor and just decrease the saturation to 0. But what that does is it tells you the tone of the color and how different they are. Because two colors, like you can have a red and a blue that you may think are very different. And when you blend them, they're going to be, they're going to look a certain way. But if they've got the same tone, if they look the same gray level, they're going to get muddy when you blend them. So you want to make sure you're looking at, lights and darks. If you want kind of an overall blending muddiness of them, like you're combining 2 shades of blue and you want an ombre effect, then you want ones that are very close. But if you want them to be very distinct, like in that blanket that's on the screen there, then you're going to want to make sure those tones are very different.
Oh, that is an awesome tip. So can you just say what is it that you do? You take a picture of the yarn and then you convert it in.
If you're in the store, your camera on your phone will probably have an option to take a black and white photo. So you can put the 2 skeins down and take a black and white photo. If you're looking on your computer, copy and paste the swatch pictures from the website into any photo editor, literally anyone, Canva, PicMonkey, any of those. And you should be able to just decrease the saturation to 0. And that will show you, what it'll look like in gray.
Oh, I love that tip. And maybe what I'm doing, I'm taking a mental note, and I know Jamie's on the call too. And maybe what we can do is we can film a little video tutorial on how to do that and share that with you guys.
I actually have give me like 2 minutes and I'll show you later. I'll pull up a picture where I took a picture of 2 skeins in grayscale and I'll show you what they look like. It's one of my patterns, so I'll just show you the website.
Amazing. That would actually be perfect. Yeah, because I really like that tip. Okay, well, while you're looking for that, I'll go over one other color combination. I love this color combination so much. I really love this blanket, actually. I like using ombre, like, just slightly different shades of the same color. It's one of my favorite looks. And so this is the Blossom Berry color combination. And again, you can see there's 5 different colors, but I kind of want to go through a few different examples to show you, again, how you can combine them in so many different ways. So you can see this is using, it looks like 2, or maybe it's a self-striping yarn, but it looks like it's very, very similar, but there is some difference in the color. So just very, very close in the purples that they are using in this pattern. Whereas this one uses primarily one color of purple and then accents it with white. So sometimes you really don't need to get crazy with color combinations. You can just use your simple base color, maybe it's a purple or a blue, and accent it with white. And then in this case, we have, let's see here, we have a few different versions of the purple, and some are quite a lot bolder and some are more muted. And so there's a lot of different ways you can play with these color combinations. But if you're someone who is starting out with color, what I would recommend is go on Pinterest and see the different color combinations other people are using in their crochet or their knitting. And then if you want to level it up a little, you can start looking at some of your favorite pictures and maybe bringing that picture into the yarn store and comparing it to some of the yarns that are there. And then, another great tip is what Pia has mentioned. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen here. And Pia, if she finds it, can share that now. I can share it later. Oh, amazing.
So this is 2 colors of yarn that I used for a headband. Can you all see that on the screen?
And
okay. And
Pia's a bit, there you go.
You got it? Okay. So this is the yarn that I use, and it's a knit headband. I apologize. But this is what the headband actually came out looking like.
Oh,
So
wow.
these are the two pinks. But before I tried to do this combination with the color work, I wanted to make sure that they looked different enough that it was going to show up, you know, because if you
Mm.
do color work with two colors that are very similar, you won't get that kind of effect. So this is the, sorry, this is the actual finished ear warmer here.
Oh, I love that. It's so, so cute.
Thank you. But yeah, so I do that regularly if I am making if I'm doing color work in particular where the colors are going to come together. It's no fun when they get muddy, you know, they
Mm.
have to be, but sometimes you want them fairly similar. Like this bag, these colors are actually fairly similar. So
Beautiful.
the overall feel is similar. And this is crocheted. This is crocheted and then felted.
It looks like rectangles.
It is. It is. It's a big rectangle. There's a bag like this in one of the patterns. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did basically that bag and then felted it.
I
Um,
love that.
so, yeah, so these colors were actually fairly similar, which was okay because I was doing color blocking. But I knew that before I did it, you know, that they were going to look pretty similar next to each other. So you didn't get a bright spot and a dark spot, you know?
Yes, I really like the colors that you used on that as well. And again, it just goes to show you there's so many ways that you can combine colors. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a really great tip. And maybe what we'll do is we can actually include a link to your blog so people can go check that out later on
Sure.
if they look into it in a bit more detail.
It's right
Um,
behind me, stitchesandscraps.com.
that's perfect. And I love your backdrop as well.
Thank you.
Now, with that said, I'd love to know, was that helpful going over the color combinations for you guys? Let me know in the comments, yes. And also let me know if you're enjoying this live stream so far. It's really fun to have you on here. And we have a lot of really great events to look forward to for the rest of the live stream. And with that, I would actually like to
If you don't mind,
go
let me
ahead.
pop in with one comment. Dawn said gradient yarns are so pretty. And I wanted to pop in and say, if you're looking for color combinations, that is actually a great tip. Go down the yarn aisle and look for gradient or self-striping yarns and see what colors they combined. Because they've already done the homework to see if the colors look good together.
That's a really, really good tip. And especially if you're just getting started with color work. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. And Dawn saying, yes, I love the color combos. And Carol says, been very helpful. So I'm really, really glad to hear that. And lots of smiley faces, which is great. So we, the next thing that I want to share with you is a video interview with Lindsay. And Lindsay's actually the crochet instructor for this class. And Lindsay is a phenomenally talented crochet instructor. And she's also a very good teacher. And she's been crocheting a very long time. And she has a very interesting background in crochet. And she also does a lot of tech editing as well. So she really understands the fundamentals of crochet. So with that said, I'd like to welcome Lindsay's interview on, and let's see what she has to say about her background with crochet and some of her favorite tips.
To another exciting interview. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the very talented Lindsay Stevens. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So for those who may not know, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started crocheting?
So my grandmother tried to teach me how to crochet when I was really little. And she showed me a chain stitch and it totally made sense. And I was doing chain stitches. And then she said, now watch this. And she waved the hook and the yarn around and suddenly there was a flower. It was like poof. And I totally could not follow what was going on. So I just kind of stuck with chain stitches for a while. And I'm like, I have no clue what I'm going to do with these long chains, but oh well. So fast forward a long time in the future, my husband and I were moving from Texas to Connecticut, and I had 2 little kids at the time, and it was going to be a 3-day car trip. So 3 days in the car with an infant and a toddler. And I was like, I'm going to have something to do to keep from going insane. So I went to the store, I picked up one of these like learn to crochet kits. I read through it a little beforehand, and I just spent that time in the car over the course of 3 days, working some of the patterns that were in the books, learning the different stitches, and I was hooked.
Wow. Do you remember how young you were when your grandmother showed you?
I really don't. My guess is probably like middle school age, but it's just kind of like one little blip of a memory that was in there. I showed my kids how to crochet when they were really little. Like I got them to work chain stitches, and my son was totally uninterested in learning anything past that. He's like, I'm happy with this. This is good. He'll just like sit there and meditatively make chain stitches. And my daughter was like interested in learning a couple more stitches.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that the foundation for your passion started so much earlier than when you actually started taking serious interest into it. I am curious though, what is crocheting in rectangles? Is it really just creating rectangular patterns, or?
So the whole idea is when you're crocheting, you're making a piece of fabric out of yarn. And the wonderful thing about crochet is there's so many different shapes you can make. You can make squares, you can make circles, you can make hexagons. But sometimes I think because we start out learning how to crochet by just making rectangles and working back and forth in rows, we tend to think of that as being like very basic and very simple, and there not being much to it. But there really is such an amazing like breadth of things you can make just by crocheting rectangles.
What are some of the things that you as a professional have made or are making using rectangles? How does this apply into your professional career kind of on a day-to-day basis?
So one of the fascinating things with rectangles is seeing how I can take them and use them to make something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So some of the favorite things I've made with rectangles for my pattern line are fingerless mitts. So like this is just a rectangle with a hole in a middle row, and it got seamed together, and it just slips on your hand and it forms a fingerless mitt. And it's really, it looks super complex. It looks like, oh, like she must be some sort of creative, amazing expert, but it's a rectangle and the stitches are super simple and super straightforward. So like I made this one with color work. When I was playing around with a different stitch pattern, I made this one that has post stitches. So it's like a different look, but still the same basic idea. Just taking a rectangle, seaming it together, and you've got something cool.
I never would have thought to expand on rectangles. You know, when you think rectangles, immediately you think a blanket or a scarf or something like that. So it's pretty cool to see that you're integrating it into, you know, more than just that. Speaking of that integration, I know that you have expertise in mathematics. Do you evaluate crocheting from like an artistic standpoint or more of an analytical and mathematical craft? For those of us who are aren't the typical creative types, is there any way that we can simplify the rectangular pattern in mathematical terms?
Totally. So I am a math teacher. And so that definitely affects some of how I approach my crochet and my crochet design, crochet patterns. But the thing with rectangles, really the idea is that for every one stitch on the previous row, you're making one stitch on this new row. And it's that idea of the stitch count staying the same, that if I have like 30 stitches on row 1, I'm going to have 30 stitches on row 2. And I'm going to have 30 stitches at the row 3. So it's not so much a formula as more the idea of kind of like a one-to-one correspondence. One stitch on the new row for one stitch on the old row.
Do you have any tips when it comes to crocheting, rectangular crocheting? Because I've noticed when I crochet, you know, that one-to-one stitch, I always seem to be uneven in one way or another. Is it as simple as just kind of counting, or is there any other methods that you use? You know, I end up with too tight or too loose and just this weird wonky looking thing.
Totally. You know, I've seen, when I teach crochet, I've seen a lot of different things that happen when people are crocheting rectangles. Sometimes if you have like one edge going in, or like popping out instead of nice even edges, it's because you're either adding a stitch or accidentally skipping a stitch. So in that case, you can like double check your stitch count at the end of each row to make sure that you're like on track. The other thing with pieces kind of being a little wonky, and by wonky I mean just like not straight edges, is the idea of gauge. Like when you're working and when you're crocheting, you're holding the yarn and the hook at a certain level of tightness or a certain level of looseness, and that affects how big or how small your stitches are. So it's very common when you start a new stitch pattern and you're working on a rectangle that like you're really super focused on what's going on. So you're working a little tighter. And then as you become more comfortable with the stitches and like you're not as nervous because you've gotten the rhythm, you loosen up a little bit and your stitches loosen up. And that causes the piece to kind of expand a little. My favorite story about gauge is actually from when my kids were little. So I was working on this scarf, so totally just a rectangle. And I started at night when they were asleep and I was just chilling out watching something, you know, online. And I started and I had like a good several inches done and it was looking good. And I decided to continue working on it the next day when I was watching my kids play outside in the front yard. Well, while they're playing in the front yard, I'm crocheting, but I'm also like, you know, don't hit your sister, give your brother some room, make sure not to run in the street. No, stay back. There's a car coming. There's a car coming. So after that time, I went back inside and I had my scarf. The part where I was working while watching TV was like this. And the sections I had worked outside were suddenly like so much narrower because I had been so tense. So I'd been working my stitches more tightly. And so that's why there's a friend of mine who's like, never start crocheting a project while you're watching a horror movie, unless you're planning on making the entire project while you're absolutely terrified, because that's totally going to affect your gauge.
Yeah, I think that those are factors that people don't really consider or think about. Something definitely I'm going to take into consideration too. Maybe I'm too tense. That's why I'm getting some unevenness in my rectangles and my scarves and stuff. It's an awesome point. Is there anything you would recommend or anywhere you would recommend people to look for rectangular crochet guidance aside from your blogs? And, you know, if you have any books or YouTube channels that you would recommend people head to?
So when I was learning to crochet, one of the books I picked up was the Crochet Answer book by Edie Eckman. And it's meant to be kind of like you look up what you're having issues with and read those sections, but I totally read it from cover to cover. And it was just like so much great knowledge and information. And I really feel that anything you look at that's going to like help you improve your crochet and give you tips and tricks and advice is going to help you when you're crocheting with rectangles. Also, look out there and see what all the wonderful possibilities are. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff in this class that you're going to learn how to make with rectangles. But I know like on Instagram, the Make and Make Do crew has this cute little video showing how to take a rectangle and turn it into a stuffed bunny. And that's like totally adorable.
Yeah, that bunny from Jess is really cool. And her Instagram, yes, Make and Do crew. Really things that you wouldn't think you could be integrating, keep struggling with that word, rectangles into. It's really fascinating to me because, again, you're really always thinking, you know, rectangle like this, never bending it or turning it or adding to it. Now, I noticed that you have a passion for Jewish crafts. On your website. You have an entire tab there. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm Jewish, and it was always kind of this thing, like I loved crafting and I loved crafts and yarn and crochet and knit and sewing and all that sort of stuff. But then I also had like this whole vibrant, fulfilling, like religious aspect of my life. And at one point I was just kind of like, you know, it's kind of silly to keep these two things separate. Like I love making stuff. I love making crafts. So let me integrate that with this aspect of my life. I don't have to kind of compartmentalize things so much. I can use like all my crafty skills to figure out things I can make and utilize in my like religious life and religious experience.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. For those who are just starting out, typically rectangles are the first pattern that we'll, head to. I was wondering if you had any recommendations for beginner patterns or crafts that, people would benefit from.
So the first thing I'm going to recommend if you're a beginner at crochet is look for patterns that are labeled beginner. Like every pattern should have a skill level label. Look for something that says beginner or confident beginner, because then you're knowing that like it's setting you up for success from the beginning. Now, obviously the great thing about the video classes we did is it gives you that extra hand holding. So even if it's a slightly more intricate pattern that maybe you wouldn't be ready to take on by yourself as a beginner, you don't have to take it on by yourself. We've got the full video class here to help you and guide you along the way.
Speaking of patterns, I know that you've created so many. I was looking at your website, thelinsaylife.com, and mind-blowing. I suggest everyone go check them out. What's your favorite rectangular pattern that you've made?
It's hard to kind of pick one as my favorite. I think every pattern is my favorite when I start it. And every pattern is my least favorite when I'm about halfway through it, because I'm like, but there was a scarf I did called the Soulstone scarf that the colorway of the yarn was inspired by the Avengers movies. So I actually did a whole take on like the Avengers and like the theme from that movie. And so that one is definitely one of my top 10.
That's awesome. I would love to see that one. What are your fans, your fan base, what do they like to see in terms of your rectangular pattern crafting? Is there anything that is kind of a fan favorite or that you notice people like more than others?
People really tend to like my posts and my videos where I just kind of explain the details. There's really so much to crochet and there's so much to understand. And I think just having someone to kind of sit there with you, whether it's on the screen or through a blog post, and just kind of break down all the information that's floating around there, I think, that's where I really connect with people, is helping them learn and explore, because they're going to be able to take that in their crochet and they're going to feel so much better when they're sitting and they're stitching and they're achieving success.
Do you have any quick advice for the beginner who's just starting out and they're just getting into their rectangular patterns?
It takes practice. I think one of the mistakes we make as adults is we can be really hard on ourselves. So like if you have a small kid and you give them crayons for the first time and they're like drawing and not quite inside the lines, you never tell them like, oh, nice try, kid, but obviously this isn't for you. No, you're like, that's beautiful. That's great. Keep practicing, keep drawing, keep coloring. You have to have that same attitude towards yourself when you're learning out and when you're starting out. Everything you're doing when you start crocheting is brand new to your hands, and you've got to build that muscle memory. It's kind of like when you're learning to drive, the first month that you have to back out of a driveway, it's a 10-minute ordeal. It's like, okay, do I have my seatbelt on? Yes. Okay, mirrors. Once you've had years and years of driving, it's no big deal. I need to back out. Okay, zoom, I'm out. And so it's the same with crochet. It'll be a little hard in the beginning and it's going to take practice, but the more you practice, the better you'll get, and you really will find that this is just so awesome and that you love it.
That's awesome advice. Well, we're running out of time, so we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up here. But first, what's next for Lindsay Stevens? What do we have to look forward to from you?
So I'm actually on the board for the Crochet Guild of America. And we are, as a board and like kind of leadership, are really starting to get into the planning for our upcoming conference this summer. So I've just got my heads in all things like conference crochet and exciting, and just the thought of being able to see people in person at conferences and in trade shows again after this really, really long hiatus. So that's kind of what I've got my eyes on for the future.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in the future and your future works. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing your talent and expertise with us. Be sure to check out the lindsaylife.com to find her links. She has free patterns, content, communities, videos, a lot of educational stuff, and it's going to really help you as you're getting started, or if you're more advanced. It's really for everyone. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. We had a little delay at the end there. So that was Lindsay. And Lindsay is, I have to say, one of my favorite people ever. We actually are both on the board for the CGOA. So I end up talking to her pretty much every other day. And she's a magnificent crocheter. And what I think what I love best about Lindsay's teaching with crochet is that she is so precise. She really understands everything about the stitches. I want to respond to a couple of comments that came up during the video. A few people asked about the book that Lindsay mentioned. And yes, Susan got that answer for us. Thank you. It is the Crochet Answer book. And then the other question that popped up, somebody asked about making those fingerless mitts. So very briefly, I'm just going to show you the general concept of the blue one she had on. You just take your crochet rectangle and you want to make it big enough to cover, your wrist and your hand as much as you want, and to wrap all the way around. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sew it together, but leave a gap for the thumb. So sew this side, stick your hand in it, figure out where your thumb's going to go, and then just don't sew where the thumb is. And it really is that easy to make a basic fingerless mitt like the blue one that she was wearing. And you can use any, crochet stitch that you want. One of the things that she talked about in the video that I thought was so important, rectangles sound easy, but they really are hard for new crocheters. It's not easy always to maintain that stitch count on the end. And somebody in the comments had mentioned that stitch markers are their heroes when it comes to that. And I want to show you what they mean by that. Okay, so looking at this swatch here, let's pretend I've just started this row. Okay, I've done my chain and I'm turning. One of the things to remember about crochet stitches, most of them, is this loop that's on your hook when you start the stitch is going to become the top of the next stitch. So if you want, you can put a stitch marker around this loop, just like that, and then start crocheting. And when you come back to it, I'm just going to do 2 or 3 stitches and then come back to it. There we go. Okay. Now, when I come back around to work the next row, I can see exactly where my last stitch is supposed to go. It goes right where that stitch marker is. So stitch markers are great for getting your edges accurate on and keeping them straight on a rectangle when you're working in rows. The other thing that really helps if you really have problems with the edges is working a rectangle in rounds, because then you don't have edges to keep straight. You start in the center and you work around and around in a rectangle shape, and you just work the corners. And for some people, especially when they're first starting out, that is an easier way to work a rectangle. So the next video that we have for you is from Terasa. She's another fabulous crochet designer and teacher, and she's going to show you how to make a rectangle that way, working around the outside edge, which is perfect for the base. Like you could do the sole of slippers or the bottom of a bag. It makes a great base for anything that you want to crochet around it. So we're going to switch over to that video.
Hello Stitchers, I'm Terasa. I'd like to demonstrate how to make a solid rectangle base in single crochet as well as double crochet so that you will have a great starting point for any of your projects, be it baskets, totes, or a rug. Let's get stitching. So here we are, Stitchers. Let's go over how to make a solid base for any type of project that you would like to use a base for. Now that can be as simple as a rug. It could be the base of a tote, absolutely a pillow. It's just what you have your sights set on. And these general instructions here are very easy to remember. Now, what we will have is a chain, the length of your desired project. Okay, so I'm just going to do a few chains here. And what I do is, since I work in the second chain from the hook, I make sure that my chain covers the length, and then just do one extra stitch so that when you get ready to start in the second chain from the hook, that you're not coming up short. Okay, so again, any length that you would like to have, and we will start in the second chain from the hook right here. Okay, and I think that we should start with, let's start with the single crochet. Okay, so single crochet, we are starting from the second chain from the hook. Now, after I make my first one, I do stop and place a stitch marker. Okay, that's what I do. And then I single crochet all the way across the length of the chain, and I stop at the very last stitch. Okay, and then we do remember, when we are working in that, starting from the second chain from the hook, that one chain that we skipped it does not count as a stitch at all. Okay, so I don't particularly like to do the chain 3 counts as a stitch and things of that nature. Chain 2 counts as a stitch. I don't usually do that in many of my projects because I like uniform edges, and edges without bumps and gaps and stuff like that. So that's just something I do. Now, if you know how to do it and keep it straight in your brain, by all means, go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is the last stitch. All right, my last stitch here. Into this last stitch, since we are single crocheting, we will place 3 single crochet in this last stitch. Okay, so again, the last stitch, that right there is the first. All right, now I'm just going to mark this first because sometimes we don't really see the 3 stitches in one until it's too late. So I just go ahead after I make my first stitch, then my second stitch, and then my third stitch all in the last stitch of the round. That's still the last stitch. Okay. Now, I am going to work here into the bottom of this foundation chain. Okay. Making sure that stitch doesn't fall out there. All right. And this is how I do it. Obviously, this is the last stitch going here. All right. Now, when I get ready to work into this first stitch, I do purposefully try to work over my tail. That's just one less thing for me to have to worry about. Okay. So again, as I turn the corner here, I'm going to work into my very first stitch here under the bottom. Okay, that's the first stitch of my foundation chain. All right, and I yarn over and I just bring it through like that there. Okay, and then as I work into the other stitches along the bottom of this foundation chain, I'll go ahead and slide my hook in and then make sure that my tail is right across the middle of it so that I can just work over the top. Not mandatory, just something that I like to do just to not have to weave in that last tail, okay? And I don't have to work all the way across it. I can stop at any time. I'll just let it drop down just so I can ensure that you are seeing that I'm going through two legs of the stitches, okay? So that's what I'm doing, okay? Again, this is single crochet, and we are chain along the bottom of the chain. We're going to stop at the last stitch because we're going to treat it exactly the same way as we treated this one. We're going to place 3, there's the last stitch, 3 single crochet into this last one. Again, that's the first, so I'll just go ahead and mark it that way. This is the second, and then the third. Okay, that was 3 stitches in the last stitch, in the last chain. Okay, now I'm going to slip stitch right here, slip stitch right into the first single crochet I made. I just go and slip stitch right into there. Okay, now in this same spot, I'm going to chain 1. That's my chain 1. And then I'll go ahead and single crochet in this same spot. I do stop to put in my stitch marker that marks the first single crochet of this round, and we're on to round 2. Now, the difference in round 2, we will single crochet all the way across, and then when we get to this stitch marker, in this stitch marker we will place 3 single crochet. Okay, so you go ahead, however many chains you've made for the project that you are working your base for, however many chains that is, you go ahead and work across. Take out my stitch marker, and into this stitch I will place 3 single crochet. I will place my stitch marker into the second single crochet because that marks the middle of the 3 single crochet. That's the second one. Again, I stop and place a marker, and my third single crochet right in that same stitch. Okay, now that leaves me with one single crochet right here. So I'm going to make one single crochet into this stitch. And then this is considered a corner that we're just going to make. We're going to make a corner right here into this next stitch. How do we make a corner? 3 single crochet into this one stitch. So that's 1 single crochet, a second single crochet into that same stitch. I do stop, take the time to get my marker, place my marker there, and then my third and final single crochet in that same stitch. Now I'm going to single crochet all the way down until I get to this stitch marker here. And again, here at this stitch marker, I am placing 3 single crochet. That's 1. Go back into the same space. 2, I take my time to place my marker because that's considered the middle stitch of the 3. That's my third single crochet into the same space. Okay, so this is what we have thus far, the blue being the beginning of the row. Okay, now I'm going to so that's 3 single crochet. Now I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in that second stitch, and in this last stitch right before the first stitch of our round, we will make another corner. And corner stitches are made by, you guessed it, placing 3 single crochet into one stitch. So that's 1. This is 2. I do stop and I mark my second, my middle single crochet because I am placing my third one right into the same space. And that brings me right here to the beginning of the round, whereupon I take and slip stitch right into that first single crochet. I chain 1, okay, I kind of ratchet it down a little bit, and then single crochet into that same space. Okay, and I just use a different color just to annotate the beginning. Now, yep, you guessed it. When I single crochet all along here, now the stitch markers indicate where 3 single crochet will be placed. And of course, slip stitching into the very beginning. I said single crochet base. I don't want that to come out before I get over there. And honestly, let's say this came out. All right. Or I got distracted, I didn't see it fall out. Let's look right here. Can you see how right here I can tell 1, 2, 3 stitches are in there? So if you are able to read your work, see that's 1, 2, 3. If you are able to read your work, you don't have to worry about stitch markers. I do place stitch markers specifically because I am usually watching TV or I will definitely, like Pavlov's dog, I will definitely stop and look when I hear a notification on my phone. So I am not always keeping my eye on my project, the project that I am working. So I do like stitch markers because they are a great visual cue for me. Okay, now here we are. This is what I do want you to realize. I'm going to I'm just going to cut it here. And I'm going to make an invisible join. But before I show you that, let's just go back over what we know. Okay, we made a foundation chain. We started in the second chain from the hook, worked the length of the foundation chain. In the last stitch, we placed 3 single crochet. Okay, then we turned and worked along the bottom of the foundation chain, and in that very last stitch we place 3 single crochet, slip stitch to join to the first single crochet that was made in that first round, and did it all over again. So I do want you to know how simple it is to do that. Okay, just around and around and around. Every time you come to 3 stitches, now again, I placed my stitch marker so that I can see it, but if you work along and you can tell, you see how it's starting to make nice little corners right here. You can tell that there's 3 in there, 3 in there. You don't have to worry about the stitch markers. I do want to show you the invisible join. I just cut the yarn, okay? Pulling it through, and I'll go ahead and put the tail end through a tapestry needle, a yarn needle, and into that first single crochet. I go under both of the legs of that stitch, and what I'm going to create right here is another stitch, so to speak. Okay. Now I can create another stitch and or just pull it very tight. I don't like the very tight look, so I try to just leave a little space to create another stitch. And then I just go right into the back and slide this down and around. What I'm doing is just weaving in here, just weaving this about inside. This is an invisible join, and all I have to do is when I pull it down is kind of make it the same width as the other stitches. Okay, now of course, now I'm working with cotton yarn, and I've gotten tighter in some rotations than others, so my base will need to be blocked. All right, now of course I can just take and snip this off here. Okay, take out my stitch markers, and again, for me, because of my tensioning, I will have to kind of work it around and go ahead and block out my rectangle. Okay, now what we're about to do is a double crochet base. Double crochet and half double crochet base all work the same way. So I have here 14 stitches. So let's just say this is the length that I need for the base I want to create. Okay, so, and I'll just make 1 additional. So when I yarn over, I can start the second chain from the hook. And I do also want you to realize that if you try to work your base, the single crochet base, how we work the 3 single crochet in the corner, if you try to use that format on half double crochet or double crochet, it will not work, because the half double crochet and the double crochet are taller than the single crochet, so it doesn't exactly create a straight edge. It kind of makes an oval, so you won't end up with a rectangle if you're using the 3 stitches into a corner for stitches that actually have a bit of height to them. It works well for single crochet, but not half double, double, treble, double. It does not work well. What I'm about to show you will work well for half double crochet and taller, okay? Half double crochet, double crochet, treble, you may call it triple, double, treble, that type of thing. Now, you notice I've already marked my first stitch. That's just what I do. We do have the same principle of working all the way until you get to the last stitch. Now, when we get to the last stitch, we're going to work a different little sequence of stitches in the last stitch. So at my last stitch, I will place this sequence of stitches in the last stitch. That is 2 double crochet, okay, chain 1, oopsie, 3 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. And yes, that means if I were working in half double crochet, I would place 2 half double crochet, chain 1, 3 half double crochet, chain 1, 2 half double crochet into this last stitch, okay? The chain 1 space here, the first chain 1 space is our actual corner, okay? Now, we're going to double crochet around the base of this chain until we get to the last stitch. And in that last stitch, we will do 2 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. And then we're right here at our first double crochet, which we'll slip stitch into. So let's just go back here. You see this? Yep. That's how you know you got everything into the last stitch. I'm still going to place my tail along the base of the chain so that I can work over it. So that's now I'm right here at my last double crochet. So again, that's 2 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, second, third, chain 1, 2 double crochet. So 2 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, all into that last stitch. Okay, that puts me right up against the first double crochet, whereupon I will slip stitch into it, chain 2. It does not count as a stitch. It just gives me the height that I need, the height of a double crochet. Okay, now still take the time to go ahead and mark that first stitch. I like this stitch marker to opens and closes easier. Now, the reason I didn't pull out stitch markers is because the chain 1 spaces are evident to me. You see how my nails just go right into those? Those are now my corners. Okay? And so this is what it will look like for round 2. I double crochet all the way down until I get to that first chain 1 space. This right here is my space. I have one more double crochet post. So always ensure that you are going into that last stitch before the chain one space. See how that double crochet lined up with that one? Don't leave that out, okay? Because then your work will start to get skewed, and you will double crochet into the space, just right there into the space. So the new rule, the new rule for the chain one space is 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. So that's my second, my chain 1, and then 2 more double crochet, all into the same space. So my new corner consisted of 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet into the chain 1 spaces. Now, again, make sure that you are getting all of your double crochet stitches matched up, because this right here, it would have been easy for me to allow this to take up the space and start right here, but then that would have been a bit wonky. So make sure you're sliding those corner stitches around so that you can get that very first double crochet matched up, okay? So there you go. 1, oh, wait a minute. Okay, 2, and these are individual double crochet. 3, and then there's 1 double crochet post. So that's the last stitch before my next chain 1 space corner, okay? And into this chain 1 space, I will place 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. That's 2 double crochet, chain 1, and back into the same space, 2 double crochet. That's the first and the second. And again, work those stitches around, maneuver them around so that you can ensure to get this first double crochet that starts this edge, okay? Don't forget that. Here we are, ensuring, see this post here? It doesn't have a post above it. It is the stitch before our chain 1 space. So let's not forget it. See how it has the 2 legs of the V there? Make sure you get into that. Okay. And I am working and working. It's usually tight as my stitch here is. There we go. But I got into it. That is the last double crochet before the chain 1 space. And again, into this chain 1 space, I'm placing 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. This, of course, created my corner. And we cannot forget to then capture this double crochet. Okay, so we're double crocheting across. 1 space. So we're working into it as well. Let's see. There we go. I'm splitting my yarn. I do apologize for that, Mr. or Miss Yarn. Okay, and into this chain 1 space, Remember, we have 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet to create our corner. Okay, it's the first and then second. All right, and then we have 1, 2, 2 double crochet that will end out this round. Okay, and of course, our first double crochet, we will slip stitch into it. I slip stitched into it. I will chain 2 and place a double crochet right back into that same space. Then I will start the process all over again. Now, technically, I don't have to mark anything because the post in double crochet are large enough to see, but I just needed it to be a visual cue for you, okay? So I'll do this last round with you as well. I'm going to double crochet all the way down to my chain 2 space, and in this chain 2 space, I will place 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet across to my next chain 1 space here, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, come all the way down, putting double crochet along the straight edge. When I get to my chain 1 space, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, then of course coming all the way over, double crochet until I get to the chain 1 space, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. I will crochet the last few double crochet before the start of the round, whereupon I will slip stitch into it and go on and on and on. And of course, I'm not going to fasten off regularly. I will do an invisible join if I am on my final round. Just okay, and then my invisible join. Thread my tapestry needle, my yarn needle. Okay, then I go down around the back and I just weave it in different places just so it'll come out not too tight. There we go, creating a nice little stitch. Of course, cut that off, and we would need to block this, but look how it lays very nicely. A nice rectangle base for any of your projects. Now, wasn't that just crafty, Stitchers? We worked through solid rectangle bases. I demonstrated a single crochet base, which of course those instructions only work for single crochet rectangle bases. The instructions for the double crochet rectangle base works well for half double crochet as well. If you are using the instructions for a rectangle base that's treble or double treble, please consider using chain 3 or chain 4 at the beginning of your rounds. This was a great project for me to research for you. Such a great way to get a start on your baskets, rugs, or even a tote. Thank you for allowing me to join you on your yarn journey. I'm Tarasa.
Hi, everybody. We're back. So that was a fabulous video. You got to see how to make the rectangle bases, how to make a rectangle in the round, basically. I want to answer a couple of questions that came up during the video. Takata, you asked, these videos will be available later today, right? Yes, they are available later today. And you can also sign up for lifetime access with the Plus membership. And there's a link for that in the comments. So take a look at that. Maybe we can get that link up on screen somewhere a little bit later as well. And then I wanted to respond to, I'm trying to find the comment. Peggy, you said you've never participated in a summit or watched more than videos of how to do a stitch. And the stitch makers for first and last stitches are a stroke of genius. Stitch markers are your friends. Oh my gosh, I have so many stitch markers. It's not even funny. They're great to mark the first and the last stitch of the rows if you're working in rows. They're also, if you're working in the round, for marking the beginning of the round, like Teresa showed you. And you can use them to mark anything you need. So if you know that you're going to have to work into a spot that's hard to find later, stick a stitch marker in it. It doesn't matter where it is. The other great use of stitch markers is for counting your stitches. I have worked shawl patterns and things like that where I have 400 stitches on an edge or more. And when you want to count that row, it's nearly impossible, right? Because you're not going to keep track for 400 stitches. Put a stitch marker every 20 stitches or every 50 stitches. And now you only have to count to 20 or 50 and you know that you're in the right spot. That's great for very long starting chains too. So stitch markers are wonderful for everything. Somebody, I believe it was Susie, you missed the intro where we were saying what we were talking about. And this is, somebody replied to you saying that she's showing how to do the rectangles in the round as an alternative to doing them in rows, so you don't have to pay attention to the edges and keeping them straight. That's correct, but there's other considerations too when deciding whether to do your rectangle in the round or in rows. So I want to point out a couple of things to think about when you decide which type of rectangle you want to do, okay? First of all, look at what you're doing with your rectangle. If you're going to just be folding this up and seaming it, like to make slippers or something, it doesn't really matter whether you have live edges, you know, these nice edges, or whether you have these side seams here, right? These side edges. But if you're going to be doing something, and I don't have a square or rectangle one to show you, I have a round one, sorry. But if you're going to be doing something like a box or a basket or something where you're working up on the sides, doing a rectangle as the base gives you those live edges all the way around, those live stitches that you can just work into to continue working something up the sides. And that's another reason why you might want to work in the round, or in the round. The other thing is color. Think about color. If I was using 2 or 3 colors on this, right? I started here, I ended here, I would get stripes of color. But if I had worked this in the round and I was using 2 or 3 colors, this would be my first color, right? Then this would be my second color. And then this would be my third color. And now you're getting these concentric rectangles of the different colors. So it's a totally different look. And there's lots of different reasons to use both. So it's not to say one is necessarily better or easier or anything like that. And I think, Susie, you also said that, and this was a great transition into our next video. So I want to find it here. You said that you just recently started crocheting and now you have so much yarn. I can't find the actual comment you said, but you said you have more yarn than you know what to do with. And that, there it goes. I'm a quarantine crochet baby. Yes, that is absolutely true. You start crocheting and the next thing you know, you have basically a yarn store in your closet. And it's so hard to keep it organized, especially when you have those little bits left over, right? So our next video, Hortense from Knitting with Chopsticks, is going to show us what she does for yarn organization. She has some great tips, and she shows a couple of different spaces too, so that you can see different ways you can work with it to fit it into your space. So that's our next video. And then we'll feel free to ask questions in the comments as you're watching, and I'll get to them after the video.
Hi everyone, I'm Hortense, the designer and knitter behind Knitting with Chopsticks, where I share my knitting and crochet patterns. They're all easy to beginner level and mostly for women and home. And today I want to talk to you about how I like to keep my yarn organized. So you've probably seen on Pinterest or Instagram these beautiful yarn stashes with all like color-coded rainbow shades of yarn. Those are amazing and I totally wanted to do that, but turns out they're not practical at all. Anytime you want to take some yarn out or add some yarn, you have to reorganize everything so it stays nice, and that's just not me. I'm the kind of person who comes home from holiday and leaves her suitcase unpacked for 2 weeks, so having my yarn in an unpractical way doesn't help me to keep things tidy and get it organized. It will just end up that I have any bags of new yarn just stashed in front of the beautiful wall, and the beautiful wall ends up half empty, and it's no good for anyone. So what I'm doing instead is a way more practical type of organization. So I wanted to go over it, so maybe you have some ideas to help you out to keep your yarn organized and your house tidier. So my yarn is in two parts. First part is right here, and the second part is upstairs in my office / guest bedroom. I'll show you that later. So here is my main stash. That's all the yarn I have that doesn't have a project planned for yet. So what I like to do is keep it by yarn weight instead of by color, because I will usually combine different colors in the same project, and this way I can see what different colors I have that could go together. While if it's by color, I will have to look at all the different skeins and see which ones I have in which weight. So I just find it easier to have it by yarn weight. So I have the lighter weight, so that's fingering weight. This is mostly DK, a lot of cotton yarns in DK. I don't know why I have mostly cotton and bamboo in DK and not any other fibers. I don't know, summer yarns. Worsted weight, as you can see, this one is pretty full. That's my favorite yarn weight. Here I have a mix of more worsted weight, and then I have this basket where I put all the half-used skeins. So anything when I finish a project that's still a decent size, but that I could use for something, but it's less than a skein, will end up in here. And then when I have any idea of a smaller project, I can just go in the box and look for the yarn I need. Or what I usually end up doing is I will work a project with one main color and then have some like a bottom edge or like a section that's in a contrasting color, and then I will look into my box for the contrasting color that goes with my main yarn that I like, so I use up those leftovers. Then here we have chunky weights and super bulky. I don't use a lot of super bulky. I find it too bulky for many things, so that's why there's only a little bit. And then the two bottom shelves are a bit of everything that still needs to be, should be tidied, and some tools. And then I also have my glass bowl of mini leftovers, I call them. I like to keep like any yarn I have left. I don't like to throw away any yarn. It just hurts my heart. So I will keep all the little teeny tiny leftovers in a glass container, either like this one or like a big mason jar. I have one upstairs. And this allows me, when I have a project that either calls for very small quantities of yarn, like my chair socks or like a coaster or things like that, I can just work out from this mini skein stash, so I don't waste anything. It's also very easy when my husband asks me for a piece of rope to hang the Christmas tree, for example. to the ceiling so it doesn't fall, then he knows he can borrow from this one without it being a problem. So that's always convenient. What I like to do too when I put my yarn away when I finish a project is if I have any like small leftovers from a skein and I still have full skein of the same yarn, I'll just put the little leftover ball winded up inside and just squish it in so it stays together, so that in my stash it stays by type of yarn and color. So that's convenient too. I also have like these baskets. I just found them in a little store around the corner, but you can probably find similar ones on Amazon. For smaller skeins, that's very easy because then I can just pull it out and see what colors I have. So what I'm using as the main storage is this bookshelf. I like that it's not very deep. It's only about like 20-25 centimeters deep. So it's basically the length of a hank of yarn. So hank of yarn is when the yarn is in this shape. So it's basically this length. So I can pull them on next to each other and keep things tidy. A lot of people will recommend that you store your yarn in like plastic containers or bags so that it doesn't get all dusty, which is a great idea. But for me, it's not practical because I like to see my yarn. So that's how I come up with ideas. So actually this bookshelf is in the middle of the house. It's right up the stairs. My bedroom is there, my son's room is there. So I come here all the time. I pass in front of it at least 20 times a day. And that's how I get ideas. I just like glimpse at it and I'm like, oh yeah, this yarn, what could I do with it? While I'm doing other things. And it really helps to get my creative juices flowing. So I really like that. So I think that's most of what I have to say about this part of the yarn stash. So let's go upstairs so I can show you the other parts. Hi again, welcome upstairs. So this is my second part of my stash. It's in my office / guest bedroom, so I try to keep it tidy. So what I like to do here is to bring up all the yarn I have a project in mind for, so that it's out of the main stash, and then when I see the main stash, it's like all possibilities, nothing's like pre-booked in it. That's just how my brain works. Once I have an idea for a project, I put the yarn aside, even if I don't have time right now to get to it. But this way, I know it's like reserved for that project, and anything else is open house for ideas. So I usually use this shelf. It's very similar to the most common IKEA Kallax one, but it's like a very cheap Amazon version that's just like plastic, and it's very lightweight. That's why I got it. Also, you can choose while you build it how many levels you do, and you can make it like not rectangle, but have one part be higher and so on. Because the wall, like the roof here, is not straight. It's like there's like a I don't know how to say it in English. There's a bend in the wall. So this allowed me to build it as high as I could without having to rely on something that had a preset shape. Anyway, it's very easy to build. It's very cheap, and it's more than enough for yarn because yarn is not so heavy. So what I like about it is that I have like different boxes, so each box can have like a different project. It's like a folder in my brain. So here I have, for example, sock projects I want to make. This yarn is gonna be for a sweater. This is gonna be another sweater, probably a cardigan. Here I have some chunky blanket for a chunky yarn. Sorry. So this box has everything I could need from my desk. That's just next to it. So I try to keep my desk a little more decluttered. So it has all my needles, hooks I use a lot, my calculator, of course. Measuring tape, And of course, my cheat sheets. I use these all the time. They have like all the hooks and needle conversions, and of course, even better, all the yarn weights. Every brand, like not every brand, but every country has a different name for yarn weights. So this makes it very easy to know what's what and to keep it organized in the stash downstairs. So you can grab a copy if you want from my website, knittingwithchopsticks.com. So yeah, that's how I like to keep my yarn organized. I'll also have here at the bottom there's a box with all like tote bags. Anytime I start a new project, I will put everything I need for it in one tote bag. For very small projects, I like to use a Ziploc bag that I can put straight into my handbag or have anywhere in the house. So this helps me keep my projects organized, have all the yarn, hook or needles, tapestry needle, measuring tape, scissors, and any stitch markers and so on that I need for the project. I will put all of that in one tote bag and just carry that around the house or outside the house, depending on where I want to craft. This makes it very easy, I find, to not lose half of my projects everywhere, and always have all the yarn and keep everything together. So here I stash my extra tote bag. So I hope this little video gave you some tips and tricks on how to keep your yarn organized and to help you be more efficient and more organized with your yarn. Thank you for watching.
Sorry, I think I was muted. We are back. I saw a long conversation going on in the comments about one of the patterns. And you did get the correct answer. Josephine, you had asked about what that meant at the end of the row, turn, and then 88 stitches. Yes, Peggy's answer was correct. It means that you work 88 stitches to the end of the row, and then at the end of the row you turn, and that 88 stitches that's at the end of the row is just letting you know that you should have 88 stitches by the time you get there. If anybody else has questions, feel free to pop them in and we will answer them. I know a few of you had some trouble with the music on the video. If you missed any part of it or you have a question about what she was saying, feel free to pop it in the chat and we'll take a look. Somebody asked way back up here, somebody asked, what's the difference between beginner stitch markers and pro stitch markers? And I'm not exactly sure what that means. I think I said stitch markers were really useful for beginners to help mark, the beginning of your row and the ending of your row and all that. But there's no real beginner or advanced stitch markers. And somebody else talked about marking the front and back of your work. You really only have to mark one side. Most people just put a stitch marker on the front. That way you don't need special stitch markers because then the other side is back. And Brittany's back. Hi, Brittany.
Hey, Pia, how are you?
Good.
Those were really fun videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed them. We had Lindsay on, which is always amazing. Obviously, she's an instructor for these classes, and she just has such a cool background and perspective on her crochet as an artist. So it's always nice hearing from her. And then also Traza. Traza is one of our instructors who does many of our classes. And I noticed a number of you in the comments mentioned that you love listening to Traza. And I just find she has such a soothing voice, don't you, Pia?
Yes, she's fun to listen to.
Yeah, it's so energetic and so bubbly. Yes, Suzanne says Traz is very clear in showing where to put stitch markers and why. And, we have a really cool and exciting event coming up. We're going to be joined with Scotty in just a second from the Leaping Lambs farm in Oregon. And she's actually going to take us on a little bit of a tour through her farm. She'll be on in about 8 or 9 minutes or so. So in the meantime, would love to continue to take some questions. If more questions have come up, I don't know if you saw anything, Pia. I'll take a quick look here to see if there's anything that I missed.
I didn't see anything else come up. No, there's nothing else that I saw in there. I'm excited about this video coming up too, though, because I hope there's sheep. I love watching shearing and spinning and all of that. I do spinning and I like to say knitting and crochet is my job, and spinning and weaving are my hobbies.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, you do, and you do spinning and weaving as well.
yeah. But I don't tend to blog about those because I'm not very good. So.
But it's fun to see. I mean, it's just incredible how much, I mean, you think when you're crocheting or knitting, you think, wow, this project really takes a lot of time and a lot of love goes into it. But then when you also factor in spinning, if you're actually spinning your own yarn as well, oh my
Well,
goodness.
and then
I mean,
the fiber prep, like, so here's how it starts. You start crocheting, right? And then you're like, oh, I should probably learn knitting too, because this pattern's so cute and I want to knit it. And so you learn knitting. And then you're like, I want to make yarn like this.
yeah.
I could spin. Spinning looks easy. And then you're like, oh, but I want to blend my own fiber. And so then you start doing the fiber prep and you start combing and blending your own fiber. And before you know it, you've got sheep in your backyard.
Yeah.
I think that's where it ends. Sheep or alpaca in your backyard.
Susie just said, my hubby said buying a sheep is out of the question.
Yes. Yeah. Well, tell him that's fine. You'll get an alpaca instead.
Yeah, that's good, right? You're not set on which type of animal. You just want something.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, there's so many steps. I mean, from shearing it to cleaning it and processing it and spinning it. And yeah, it's a lot. And then dyeing as well. You can't forget dyeing.
Oh, I know. And that's, I mean, that's when it really starts to get to the next level, I think. You just realize how much creativity you can really bring into your art projects, which I think is so amazing, right? It's like, okay, when I got started, I just got started following a pattern, and then I started to take small liberties with maybe switching it from double crochet stitch to a lemon peel stitch, and just like little tweaks. And then as you get more comfortable, you start playing around with other people's patterns. And then, as you said, it's a whole other world when you actually get into actually making your own yarn, and the amount of customization you can do with the fiber and the weights and how that's going to drape, and then the color. I mean, it's so cool. And I think that that's just such a beautiful part about the craft, the fiber art craft is, a lot of people start at a very young age, not everyone, but I mean, you can dedicate your entire life to just really all aspects of this craft.
Oh yeah. There is a question that came up in the chat that I can actually answer because I'm about to do it myself. So I will just show you guys. Linda asked that Lindsay was showing how to change colors by leaving loose ends. And then what do you do with the ends later? Well, yes, you're right. You weave them in. Pretend that I had just changed colors and I left this loose end. I'll show you how I weave it in. So what I like to do is I like to weave in vertically and not horizontally. If you weave in horizontally, it will tend to pull the stitches together like that and cinch them up, and you'll get little gathers. So I tend to weave vertically, and you're just going to go on am I on my wrong side? Yes, I'm on the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm just going to go under a few loops like this, vertically up the edge here. And I just pick up, a few loops in this direction and pull the tail through. Now make sure not to do that and pull it too tightly. You want to loosen it up. Okay, and you see it sort of disappears. And then I go back down in other loops in the opposite direction. And I am really, really careful about my ends. Like I really hate the thought of it coming undone. So I will go back up again. This is probably overkill. Most people don't weave in their ends as much as I do, but I'm really paranoid about it. And then you just give it a little tug so it's snug, and then snip it off, and it should just suck back in, and you can't even tell it was there. But make sure you're weaving into the same color. If you've changed colors, don't weave into the next color. You know what I mean?
I love that little tool that you have to cut the yarn.
Oh, thanks. This is the Clover, what do they call it? It's a circular cutting pendant or something like that. It's got a weird name. But it's basically a circular blade that is inside a protective case. So if you look right in there, you can maybe see the blade edge. There it is. Do you see the blade edge between the teeth there? So when you stick the yarn in there, it just snips the yarn. My favorite thing, I always used to lose it, so I put it on a rainbow piece of yarn so I could always find it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It'd be really cool if you could turn it into a necklace. Then you always.
Oh,
have
it is
your
a
tool.
necklace. It's a pendant. It's a pendant. It's got the hole. It's meant like it's sold as a pendant so that you can just wear it with you whenever you need it.
True commitment.
When I go to conferences and I know I'm going to be losing all my bits everywhere, I do tend to wear it, actually.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. I love that. There's so many cool tools nowadays. So it's always nice to see the different tools people are using and, you know, how they go about it.
That's actually another thing you can use as a pendant, believe it or not, is stitch markers. I got stuck one time with a shirt that I had nothing that matched it. I have more stitch markers than I do jewelry. So I went in my stitch marker bin and I found a set of stitch markers that matched the shirt, and I just put them on a pendant. I mean, put them on a chain, and it was like the prettiest little necklace for the shirt.
Oh, you'll have to send a picture if you have one. That sounds.
I would have to. It was years ago, but now I do it routinely. Like I've got these little tiny heart ones that I'll stick on something, and I mean they clip onto anything, right? So why not necklaces?
Yeah, and I mean there's also so many cute different stitch markers, and not to get down this whole rabbit hole, but I mean also make your own stitch markers. So there's just so many ways to be crafty. But I was laughing because Peggy said, "No way I'm learning to spin yarn. My obsession with buying yarn has filled my spare bedroom. I can just imagine bundles of wool taking over my bedroom."
Yes. The good thing is this is a tip for anybody. You can shove an unopened bag of wool into a pillowcase and use it as a pillow until you're ready to spin it. Don't tell any of my spinning friends that. They will yell at me because it compresses the wool. But I shove them into decorative pillows that aren't going to get squished, and they're all over the house.
I love that. It's like you're stashing for doomsday.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, I probably have the equivalent of about 50 sheep in this house. I swear it's a lot of wool.
To learn a little bit more about that process, and we will get into that in just a second. As we're waiting for Scotty, though, there is a few other questions that have come in. Linda said, what I'm wondering is, does she join the colors together or does she just weave them in?
Oh, no, you weave them in individually. The tails, you weave them into the color that matches that tail. The colors are joined by doing the actual stitch.
Perfect. So hopefully that helped answer your question, Linda. And M. Henning had a question as well. And she says, it seems like a silly question, but how do you know which side is front or back, especially when both sides look great? And that's not a silly question at all. A lot of people have that question.
Yeah. The quick answer is the pattern will tell you. And you can also decide if you don't like what the pattern says. But when you get into more complicated patterns, sometimes it doesn't really matter, but the pattern will specify it just so they can refer to that side later. Like I have patterns where they look the same on both sides, but I'm going to say front so that you know which side I'm talking about. So it's just whatever the convention in the pattern says. It should say row 1, right side, and then you can just mark that row as your right side.
Perfect. Thank you. And Susan says, I'm thinking of offering crochet instructions at my library for people wanting to try crochet. I'm not a teacher. I'm just a confident beginner. Do you have any suggestions for me to approach this project, or maybe things she should consider as she looks at teaching?
I have a suggestion, but it may be more effort than you want to put in. There is a program called the Certified Instructor Program through the Craft Yarn Council. I very, very strongly recommend before you start teaching crochet that you do this program. It'll teach you how to make lesson plans. It'll teach you how to break down the stitches and teach them. I had been teaching crochet for years before I took that program, and I learned a lot and changed my teaching style a lot based on that program. So I think that's an important one if you're going to start doing it. But, you know, if you're just doing it casually, like you're not charging and it's just for fun, I would just be clear that you're not a, professional, or you're not a advanced crocheter, that you're just teaching beginners. Otherwise you'll get questions that you're not going to be able to answer.
Feel comfortable with. Yeah, and also, I mean, you can start by teaching your friends or anyone that you know personally. I think that's a really great way to get started with, getting comfortable teaching. And then outside of that, what Pia said, just go to the library and just be confident in who you are. Like, you're a passionate beginner and you want to share that craft, and maybe it's a little crochet circle or a knitting circle and it's just more casual. But I mean, people are always looking for community and looking to get together. So I think it'd be really amazing thing for you to kind of spearhead and help bring that community together, and then just let it evolve organically.
I'll make another pitch for you. I told you earlier, me and Lindsay are both on the board of the Crochet Guild of America. If you don't have a chapter in your area, we'd love to help you start a chapter. And that is a great way to teach people how to crochet. So that's another option. You can look them up at I want to say it's crochet.org is the website.
Awesome. Well, that's really good feedback. And I know there's still more questions. We will get to those shortly, but we have some exciting news. We have Scotty backstage right now from Leaping Lamb Farm. So I'm really, really excited to bring her on because, of course, we get a tour of the farm and we get to meet lots of cute animals. So with that said, love to bring Scotty on.
Hi.
Hi, Scotty.
Hi. It's good to see all of you. You are at Leaping Lamb Farm in Alsea, Oregon. And what I've done to make life easy, well, for me, is I've brought all the sheep in the barn because it's easier for me to be able to show you things. But I've also got a couple goats in the barn. We're going to have a lesson. How can you tell in a field goats versus sheep so you don't embarrass yourself in front of your friends? And then I also have a horse. And so he wants to talk first. So we'll just say hi to Tater and then we'll walk over. And lastly, so Kate, who's holding the camera, is actually a spinner. What?
I'm saying hi.
She's waving. Oh, spinner, weaver. She knits, she crochets. She does all the stuff you guys do. So she has some examples that I'll pull out. And if I say the wrong thing, she will correct me about what they are because I am not a spinner or a weaver. And I should say that most of our sheep are actually hair sheep. So I will show you the difference between a wool sheep and a hair sheep, and you don't spin hair. You can maybe felt it. But okay, let's come in. So we'll just start with Tater. Can you get your head up? Can you get your head up? So this is Tater. He's a quarter horse. He's looking for cookies.
Hi, Tater.
Yeah. And he's got hay in his hair. But anyway, so he neighbor's house and he's being nasty like that because he thinks I should give him more treats. Okay, let's go this way. So the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna save the sheep for last. We're gonna do some goats. So I have a female goat in here. Female goats are called does. And then I have a little boy. So this is Patches. And this is Opal. So Opal is a doe. And Patches, wherever he went, he's a wether. But if he had not been castrated, he would be called a buck. And so goats have hair. They do not have wool. At least these goats don't. These are Nigerian dwarf goats. But if you see, their tails go up. So this is the trick. Goats' tails go up, sheep's tails go down. So I will show you what those look like. But we have these guys here at our farm to keep down our blackberries because blackberries in Oregon are invasive and they love to eat the leaves off of them. They're very friendly. So if you ever are looking for a goat and you want something small, Opal here thinks she's a dog and she walks on a leash.
They're adorable.
Okay. So we will go this way. And we're not going to let them out. Okay. We do have chickens in the barn, and these chickens are causing all sorts of trouble right at the moment. So these are our sheep right in here. I'm going to walk in. Kate will stay on the outside. And so what we have here, a female sheep is called a ewe. A male sheep is called a ram, and then a castrated male is a wether, similar to the goats. We've got a bunch of different kind of sheep in here. If they have tails, like this over here, these are my hair sheep, right here. And they have two different kinds of coats. So this is Nona. She has a curly coat. So you'll see how her coat's really, really curly. She loves to have her back rubbed.
Explain why we keep the tails.
We keep the tails because if you have a wool sheep, is it a wool sheep?
No, that was
No.
no. Sheep.
With wool, it tends to, in the summer, if their tails get icky, flies attach to it. So we take tails off of wool sheep. But hair sheep, all these guys are going to shed. So this one right here. Let's see, I have some that are shedding already. And let me see who I can find, because I had one that I pulled her hair off of. Let's see. These are all, nobody's shedding quite yet. Oh, but they shed like this. Okay, hang on. I've got a really good one here that I pulled wool off of earlier. Oh, well, even this one. So you see, it comes out like this. And I pulled some out earlier. So this is hair. So just so you guys know, for the weavers, you know you want to have a long staple. This is really, really short. It's a really, really short staple, like that. So you can't weave this.
Spinning.
Oh, you can't spin it. Sorry, you guys. I know about sheep and raising sheep. I don't know as much.
This is great.
But so this is an example, though, of when my sheep shed. So this is shed off all in one piece. And you'll see it's actually felted on the inside. And it felts until it pulls off. So this is what a hair sheep would do, right? Now look, I've got some that have really good wool. But so if they're friendly here, it means they were bottle babies. If they let me pet them like this, if they run away from me like that, it means that they were not bottle babies. So sheep tend to not be too friendly. They won't bite. But they also won't hang around. So this is the one who's shedding. Did you see that? So I pulled it straight off of her. And if you look at her, I'm going to see if I can get her to come closer. By taking it basically. So you can see, so she's a straight coat. Get out of the way. Out. There you go. So you see right on her back, she's going to shed right down to this level here. And then that's what we'll have. And this falls all over the farm. And so sometimes when it falls in big pieces, I think, oh my gosh, I just lost a sheep. But the birds love this. And so they make nests out of this. You can also use this for compost and for to put her. So if they're friendly, they have names. So this is Rainy. So Rainy, actually, you'll see she doesn't have a tail versus this one right here, Brownie, who does have a tail. So Rainy originally has she's a black Suffolk, black-faced Suffolk. And so that's her heritage, but she's now half and half wool and hair. So it's not really coming out very easily. Oh, I know Brownie. I know. Nobody loves Brownie enough. So we have them in here, but generally what happens is all these sheep will go out onto our pasture. So I'm going to walk you out and just show you where they go. And they get to be out on pasture all day. And so we are in Oregon. It is raining right now, but you'll see how it's really pretty green here. So in the winter, they can go out, eat grass. We pull them in at night. This is where they spend the night, right here. But they can go, there's pasture. We have about 20 acres of pasture. In the summer, what we'll do, because this is Oregon, we will rotate them around so that they don't eat all the grass. Okay, now I'm going to show you Kate's little menagerie of things to show you. So first of all, we have her spinning wheel right here.
One of.
Show you what?
One of.
One of her spinning wheels.
You can never have just one spinning wheel.
What?
You can never have just one spinning wheel.
Yeah, you can never just have one spinning wheel. And then I covered all this so the chickens couldn't get into this. And it's all on my horse blanket. Okay, so for all of you spinners, this is roving. So once the wool has been washed and carded, then it gets turned into roving like this. And so then this is what you take and you pull out on your wheel to spin. This is roving that has been hand dyed. So you'll see it's still really fluffy. And you would put this on your wheel and you would make something that looks like this. So Kate has hand knitted, what is it called?
Knitted.
She's knitted this. So, I'm sorry, you guys. And so then there are other examples though here of dyed.
That's just commercially spun yarn.
Commercially spun yarn that I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. You probably use stuff like this for your crochet and your knitting. And then there's some more that you dyed.
I spun.
Oh, so Kate spun this from from the roving.
Yeah.
And so, okay, Kate spun all of these.
Yeah.
So Kate spun all of these from roving that looked like, I mean, in different colors, but looked, nope, like, oh my God, like this. Okay, so this turns into this. So she spun all of these on one of her many wheels. I don't know how many wheels she has. So I also wanted to show you what
It's on the side.
this looks like before it gets to the roving part. Hang on a minute. I'm trying to keep all of her stuff clean here in the barn. So this is raw wool. So this is what gets shorn off of the sheep. And then you take this to the mill and they will make the roving for you. And you have to, when you take it to them, you can see it's dirty on the edges, but it can't have straw or hay in it or they get all mad at you and they won't do it. But so this is raw. And then this right here is a different kind of wool.
I've washed that stuff myself.
Oh, you want? Okay, so this is a Gotland sheep that have this very, very curly wool. Can I pull it or is that bad?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. And so Kate hand washed this in the bathtub or the sink. Usually you have to wash them about 3 times. And so I'm assuming that Kate's going to maybe make her own roving out of this. Because what you would do is after you wash it, you're going to card it with a carder, which then makes that kind of soft, fluffy stuff and it makes it all go together. And then you take that and that's what you spin on your wheel, which then makes the stuff you can knit or crochet out of. So this is from a friend who has these gorgeous sheep. And I should tell you that people that raise sheep for wool, they put blankets on all their sheep. Out the straw and the poop and whatever before they send this to be processed. And I love my sheep. They love their sheep even more. And they specifically will breed usually because they're usually spinners and weavers and knitters. So they will breed specifically for better and better and better wool off of their sheep. I breed, honestly, our sheep are for meat. So they're for your lamb chops. And I breed for bigger size, or I actually like nicer mothers that can do a better job at having their babies. So I don't have to help as much, and who take care of their babies, and who are just nice. You know, sheep don't bite, but they can certainly knock you over if you're pushing them in a direction they don't want to go. So these are some other hats that Kate has made, all with wool that she has spun. And I'm sure we are really happy to answer any questions you might have. And if I don't know the answer, Kate will.
Do you want to show them the front of the barn?
But yeah, okay, here, let's just show you where you are. So you are in a.
Somebody did ask a question. What's the benefit between having hair sheep versus wool sheep?
So hair sheep, I don't have to find somebody to shear them for me. I mean, and my sheep shearer is almost my age at this point. Every time I watch him lean over and stand back up again, I'm not sure he's going to do it. So that's one thing. So that saves money, because if I were just to shear these sheep that don't have very good wool on it, it costs me more to shear than I could ever sell the wool for. And I know you guys probably pay a lot more in the store, but when I just go to sell raw wool, it's about 15 cents a pound. So it's not worth it. So there's that. Then hair sheep tend to have less fat, so they have a milder flavor, so they taste better. And they're just easier. They're easier on the land. They're easier on me. They're really good mothers. So that would be the difference there. But this barn that we were in, which I didn't really demonstrate very well, it was built in 1930. And it's actually a really, really cool barn. It's got an upstairs with a big hayloft. But this will kind of give you an idea of what it looks like out here. And so we only bring the sheep into the barn when we're trying to do something like trim their hooves, give them shots. And if you saw those sheep that had orange dots on them, Kate and her husband just this week trimmed hooves and gave them shots. And that way we know who we did it for, because they don't all look the same, but they all look the same after a while when you're trying to do something like that. So yeah.
Hi, kitty.
Yep. So that's what the orange dot is.
It's funny. Someone just asked a question.
Oh, okay.
This is Lucy.
This is Lucy. This is one of our barns. Oh, well, she gets camera shy. So, and the chickens that are out here, we have them out here so they can scratch the poop around, because what chickens will do, they'll scratch poop and they eat the little bugs. And so it makes it for healthier
Soil.
Livestock and soil. But they're kind of a pain in the barn because they also scratch our hay and our straw all over the place. And just so you know, this is the other thing when you're at a farm, so you don't embarrass yourself. This right here is hay. So hay is what animals eat. Sheep eat it, horses eat it, cows eat it. You'll see it's a really fine leaf and a fine grass. So hay is grass. This over here that we were on, this is straw. So straw, you'll see it's much, much thicker. And this is what animals sleep on. They do not eat straw. Okay, so now you know, you'll be able to tell the difference between a goat and a sheep, right? Tails up goats, tails down sheep. These are Nigerian dwarf. She's actually a myotonic goat, which means she's a Tennessee fainting goat. So she falls over when she gets scared. And then she stands back up again. And so goats bleat and a sheep baas. Although nobody is baaing over here at all. And a hair sheep for meat. Now there are dual purpose sheep. So there are big flocks where they will they don't use the wool to sell. What they do is they'll do the hide. So when the sheep is butchered, the hide then becomes those really gorgeous lambskin. So they'll do multiple pieces of it. We could actually do hide rugs for these guys. It would just not be fluffy. Okay, so can I answer other questions?
Yeah. So awesome to get a tour of the farm and see all the different animals. I especially like your tour of the spinning and description of everything.
Yes.
Oh, and I didn't tell you guys. This is a shepherd's crook, right? You guys have all seen this on Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever. I'll show you how these work. I'm not very good with it though. Well, my sheep don't like it at all. I mean, we might as well do the whole shepherd thing, right? Okay, so a shepherd's crook would be used to catch a sheep. Like, well, let me catch a little one. Like this. So then you can grab them because they're really pretty fast. If you saw, I surprised this little lamb. But let's see. Well, all of these guys standing around here are all of our friendly sheep. So let me see if I can go for somebody who's not a friendly sheep too. But here we go. So it just catches them. And it just makes your life easier. for how you can do stuff with them, right? There you go. You're a good girl. Everybody has tags too. I didn't explain that. They have tags so we know who they are. We know who their moms are. So right here, tag in the left ear, it means she's a girl. Tag in the right ear, boy. That's just what we do on our farm. But a lot of farms will do something similar. That way I can tell that's a boy. That's Sean right here. Sean thinks he's a dog. Sean loves to have his chin rubbed. Sean got to stay with us. We don't keep boys, especially Weathers, but he got to stay because we host guests on our farm. And everybody knows Sean, the sheep. And everybody loves Sean, the sheep. So he figured out how to stay on the farm. And he's good because he kind of, he's good for these other ewes. So he's a little protective.
Somebody asked, how often can a sheep be sheared?
Once a year. We do it once a year. Some people will shear right before they're going to lamb because then it makes the sheep really clean when you're having the babies. But for us, that's like March, so it's cold. At the very beginning, I used to do that. I would shear and then it would like snow or something. And so you have all these bald sheep out there. Yeah. So I now shear in May before it gets to summertime because you don't want them to be hot. And I don't shear that many. I don't have that many left. I have maybe, well, I have to shear Sean. We have maybe 5 left. This one with the black face also, we shear her. You gotta look for whether they have tails or not. But there's not that many. And so in terms of shedding, they tend to shed out by the time summer comes when it's hot. And they do that by rubbing on fences and things like that. Trees. In fact, look at this. She's already.
And about how long does it take?
What is it? How long?
How long? Say again.
About how long does it take to shear a sheep?
How long
does it take to shear a sheep?
How long does it take?
It takes my sheep shear about 3 minutes. Yeah. He's really good. He has a setup here. Impressive. And I hope I sent a video showing him doing it. But he has a way of putting them between his legs, and he shears it off in one. What do they call it? Pelt. It's not a pelt. In one fleece. And so he starts at the head, he goes down underneath, then he goes on the sides, and he's just flipping these poor sheep around. But they're used to it, so they don't really care. They're on their back. And once sheep are on their back, they just kind of give up. And he gets it done, and then they're on their way. And everybody's happy.
And so what is the overall process? I know you went through it a little, but from the sheep shearing to it turning into wool. After they get shorn, it gets sent to be washed and
skirted.
Right. So it's called skirting. So you would take your fleece, you lay it out on a table. Skirting means you cut off all the icky parts on the edges. Then you're going to pull out all of the straw and the hay and anything that's going to make your processor mad. Then you would, if you're doing this yourself, you card it. There are these carding.
You wash it first.
Oh, sorry. You wash it. Now it takes about three times to wash it. Tub, a fleece. Some people will wash in a big sink, and you do use detergent.
There's special detergent.
Okay, there's special detergent that you would use to get all the dirt out, right? So once you've got it washed, then you can card it, and that's these paddle kind of things that have these teeth in them. You card it to make it nice and smooth. Then you would take it to your wheel and you would spin it to be the nice thread, and then you would wrap that into
a skein.
A skein. Thank you. You would wrap it in a skein. And if you wanted to dye it, though, you would have taken it after you had made it into roving.
You could either dye the roving or you could wait and dye the yarn.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, dye the roving, dye the yarn, make it into a skein, knit it, crochet it, weave it. Yeah.
So hand carders, which you'd mentioned, with the tines on them, they look like dog slicker brushes, right?
Yes.
So that if people haven't seen hand carders, that's basically what they look like. It's giant dog slicker brushes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might even have one here. Isn't that thing with the red handle a hand carder?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Hang on a sec, you guys. I might have one of those because the former owner here did weave, and she did have wool sheep. I'm gonna let Kate just shoot into the sheep for a minute while I go see it. I think I have it right here.
Kate, somebody asked, is there any commercial use for the hair sheep fleece as long as we have you?
Hair sheep fleece. You could felt it. People do come and get it and use it in their compost. That's pretty much all we sell it for or give it away for. I've never used it. We did have someone take some and spin it, clean it and spin it and make a weaving out of it. It's actually pretty cool. I don't personally have the patience for that.
So the hair sheep, they don't have the little like regular wool sheep have little jagged edges on each hair, right? And that's how
like a guard hair?
No, never mind. I can't think of the right word, so ignore me. I was going to ask if the what makes the hair different from the wool is basically what I was getting at.
So here, this is hair sheep, right?
So is it just the staple length that's different?
It's the staple length. It's still a wool.
Oh, okay.
So it is still wool.
Okay.
It's just, you see how short it is if I try to go like this versus this one. And this one, it's a little, so how do I do this?
Just fluff it up and then pull.
Can you explain staple length for people who don't know what that is?
Sorry, we have a chicken named Nose who just laid an egg. She's proud.
Yeah. So you see how much longer this is?
And a crimp in it.
See how I could go like this and make it long? If I tried that, this is the hair. It's gonna go. It's a little more brittle too. It doesn't seem to have as much lanolin in it as the wool does. So see, it's just really short. So what you could do with this, oh my God. You could felt this, however, because you can felt anything like dog hair or anything. So this is going to be closer. But this has a really nice, lovely lanolin feel in it. This is kind of dry.
Let's get away from the chicken.
Get away. Get away.
The chicken wants her 15 seconds of fame.
Okay.
I know, exactly. Like, pay attention to me. Well, actually, we had
We're going to get away from the chicken. Hang on.
The chicken's like, no one's paying attention to me.
Okay. We're just going to
stand here.
We're going to stand right here.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. So, a few questions. Yes.
Okay. So to felt something means I could felt, you guys. So what you do is you take the wool or whatever you have, and you can use felting pins, or you can with soap and water and
agitation.
What?
Agitation.
Over and over and over and over again. And then it makes felt. And felt is, you can do clothing out of it, or you can do hats. What's nice about it, felt, is that it is relatively waterproof and warm. But if you remember the inside of the fleece that I showed you, that one of our sheep pulled off, it's all felted in the inside because it's gone back and forth like this. And so it just makes it, basically you're tying it in knots. Right?
All the fibers interlock.
The fibers interlock. So if I kept doing that with water and soap for about half an hour.
A long time.
And then you can dye it. Yeah.
You can make slippers.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think you can buy felt slippers. You can buy felt hats.
with
buy felt vests.
with the pins, you can do shapes, so you can make little animals, stuffed animals, and kinds of
we
things.
could make little felted sheep if we wanted, if we were had time.
Is the wool oily, and what causes allergy to wool? I'm allergic to wool.
So the wool is not oil. This is the nice wool. It's not oily. It has lanolin on it. So if you ever look at a sheep shearer, his or her hands, they have gorgeous hands, because lanolin is used in beauty products. So it holds moisture to the skin. So what it does also, it repels moisture off the sheep. So sheep could stand out in the rain or the snow and they wouldn't on the inside be wet, which is why people like to use wool, because it wicks, right? So wool socks, if they do get wet, they wick out the moisture. People use wool also now these days for insulation, because wool is not an insulation that rats and mice like to eat. So it repels rodents, but it also repels insects and things like that.
And if you're allergic, it probably is the lanolin, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably not the fiber. But
although I think a lot of people, if they get scratchy wool with a lot of second cuts or guard hairs, they think they're allergic, and it's just bad wool.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different grades of wool.
Right. And also different kinds, like merino wool is going to be really, really soft. If you just made a hat out of my few sheep here, it would probably be pretty scratchy, because I'm not breeding them for a soft wool. And what Kate did for some of those hats, so I have a hat from her. She took wool on the outside and then
just acrylic yarn on the
inside, which is softer. So that's one way to kind of get around that too. Mine's totally wool. I don't find it itchy.
So it looks like Kat asked, can the hair wool be used for stuffing for toys and things like that?
Oh, there would be no reason why I couldn't. Absolutely, it could be used for that, or a dog bed.
Yeah.
All you have to do is you have to wash it, and so you would want to be careful washing it, that you don't felt it while you're doing that. But yeah, you see, it's still it bounces back. So it is nice like that. And yes, absolutely, you could use it for that. But the thing is, the sheep shed it out in the field or on the fences. So you'd be going along the ground, picking up a lot of wool.
Some sheep you could pluck it off of.
Yeah, that's true.
It's called ruing.
It's called ruing?
Ruing.
Yeah, we have a ram that used to love it if you would stand next to the fence and just pull his hair out in the spring. He would stand there for hours to let people do that.
So Kate might know this. Kate, isn't that how they collect bison wool? Is when they shed it on like trees and fences and stuff, and you just go pick it up after them?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You're not going to go up to a bison and go.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what else? Anything else that we can answer?
We can try.
Yeah. I mean, so just the reality is you're mostly on a meat sheep farm, but you're lucky that Kate, who lives here, loves to do all the wool things that you guys do. And I just embarrass myself in front of you, but at least I can tell you about sheep. So
I have a question for you.
It's really fascinating.
Go ahead, Brittany. Sorry.
Go ahead, Pia.
Oh, I was just going to say
it's really
do sheep normally have, when sheep have babies, do they normally have them one at a time, or do they have litters like dogs and cats do?
Okay, they don't have a litter.
Okay,
but they tend to have 2 or 3. They can have singles, but quite. And you're selecting who's going to be your next, your mothers. You pick the ones that were a twin already. So you want to have twins or triplets. The problem with triplets is the sheep only have 2 teats. So if you have triplets, either your baby stays small or you have to pull one off and bottle feed it, which our guests don't think is a problem at all. But
that would not be a problem for me.
Yeah, right, exactly. But they tend to twin for the most part.
That's so weird. That's interesting. Like you wouldn't think that.
It also depends on the availability of the food. So if the pasture's really good, they're more likely to have twins or triplets. If the pasture's dry or food is scarce, they're more likely to have a single.
Right. So they just, their body automatically looks for scarcity or bounty. So
That is
but
so
we feed
amazing.
our sheep up. So right now they're getting extra special hay. They're getting extra special nutrients. They're all going to have babies in March, April. So a lot of the sheep that you saw in there, the moms, they're all pregnant.
Mm.
So if they looked kind of fat and whatever, yeah,
Round.
yeah, round.
So Susie had asked while you were talking about felting, I had shown this bag that I'd shown earlier that I felted, and Susie was asking, what's the benefit to felting a project like that? Like, what would be the benefit to felting a bag? I can answer that, but I thought while we have you, you could answer it better than me.
Well, I would just say if there's something you want to make. I mean, that would be my only benefit. And what we maybe would be cool to do here on this farm, since we don't have wool sheep, it would be to felt little lambs that the kids can take home. I mean, you can see this if I were to like really fold this into enough stuff and put some legs on it and little ears or something. A lot of little kids would probably like to have something like this.
Felted dryer balls are cool too.
What?
Dryer balls.
Felted dryer
sure.
balls.
Sure.
Yeah. That way you don't have to use those dryer sheets. You just put big balls of felted wool in your, and they just felt more as you use them too. So you're not going to ruin them.
Yeah, it's better than putting your sneakers in your dryer to get things to fluff up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they dry things faster too, because they wick away the moisture. So it might be, I mean, we call it hair. It is wool. Just doesn't have as much lanolin on it as this does. And it's not as long a fiber.
I kind of want to come visit your farm now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many of you are in the States or whatever, but there are, there's a lot of farms you can go stay on that specialize in wool or have sheep that love to host people and tell them what they do and let you run your hands through the wool on the sheep or bottle feed the babies in the spring. So
yeah, if you guys have never done that, that is a great experience. We have a Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival out here that goes to a farm, and they let you pet the sheep and everything. It's a completely different experience to feel what your yarn looks like before it's yarn.
Exactly. So I actually, I host guests here, but there's Farm Stay USA, which is farms all over the country, and you can search by the farms that have sheep. And so then you'll find farmers love to talk about their sheep. So you can get more education about sheep than you ever wanted, and maybe more hands-on. I mean, we have people here when we're lambing, they help us in the barn. They hold the baby lambs. They maybe help us, giving shots and things like that. They get very involved if they want to. So that's always a fun experience to see where, what they talk about, know where your food comes from. This is like know where your wool comes from.
And food.
And food. Any other questions I can answer?
Can you say that URL one more time?
Oh,
the website for finding.
Sure, farmstayus.com or farmstayusa.org.
Farmstay.
Because it's a nonprofit association.
That's perfect.
But yeah, but you can find farms all over the U.S. We're mostly just U.S. right now. There's a few in Canada, but our program doesn't like Canada for the address. So, yeah.
Well, we put the URL up on the screen. That's a great resource. And Leaping Lamb Farm will share your website as well. So if anyone is in the area, they can come do a
we would
tour.
love,
You said you guys do tours?
We do tours. We do tour. You don't have to come introduce you to all of our animals. We're only on one side of the farm. We have a whole other side with a big chicken yard and our rams and things like that. It's just our Wi-Fi doesn't reach all the way.
Yes. So. Well, the part of the farm that we did see today was lovely, and we've got so many amazing comments on the chat that you might not be able to see on your screen. So it was really neat to meet the sheep and meet the animals and to get a tour and a sense of, how wool turns into an actual sweater. So thank you so much.
Okay, you're very welcome. Thank you guys very much for visiting on our farm.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, that was really, really cool. I love experiences like that because it just feels like you can get transported to a totally different life and place or country, depending on where you are in the world. But if you enjoyed that, let me know in the comments below. Peggy says, makes me homesick, but thank you so much, Scotty. And I really enjoyed that. And especially, like I said at the start, it's been a tough last 2 years, and a lot of us haven't really been traveling. So it's cool to get people like Scotty on to get a little glimpse into what they're doing and where they're living. And Leslie says, what a fun session. And this is the Leaping Lamb Farm Facebook page. So if you go on the Facebook page, there's actually a ton of really amazing photos. I actually love some of the pictures of the cats, which, by the way, you probably can't tell I have cats on my top. Huge cat fan. But yeah, there's some really, really, really cute pictures on there. So the Leaping Lamb Farm. And yeah, there's a lot of people saying, so Leslie says, what a fun session. Josephine says, thank you for the farm. I really enjoyed it. And Teresa says, this is wonderful. Teresa, thank you for showing this. Loved it. Yeah, so it was a fun experience. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying this live stream so far. Let us know what you think. This is the first live stream that we've done during some of our summits. And so we wanted to experiment with having a little bit more of an interactive and engaging session. And if this is something you enjoyed, definitely would appreciate your feedback so that we know if we want to keep them up going forward. But it's definitely been something that I've enjoyed. We are going to, if there are any questions, we'll take a few more questions before we will actually end this session and jump off. So feel free to ask questions in the Q&A as you have. And outside of that, again, you'll have until the end of today, Sunday, to continue to watch the Crochet Anything with Rectangle Summit videos on this page. And if you do want a little bit more time, or you just really enjoyed it and you want to support the business and be partaking in more of these classes in the future, then definitely go ahead and upgrade to all access. You'll get access to all the video classes on this page, plus a ton of other bonuses and cool color combinations and access to the recording as well. So Susie says, I love the community feel to this. I really have enjoyed that too. It's been so great seeing your guys' comments and just being able to communicate with each other. And it's things like talking about wool allergies or, yarn organization tips. Definitely nice to have that community aspect. And Sheila says, more live segments, please. So
yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun to interact with everybody and answer all the questions and everything.
Yes, and I want to give a big shout out to Mike too, who is behind the scenes doing all of the tech. So I really was happy with the technology and how we're able to use the different videos. And Mike, you did an amazing job with that. And also Mike was featured on the interview with Lindsay. So you got to meet him unofficially. Now, Pia, did you see any questions? I'm just seeing if I missed anything.
No, I wanted to give a better or different answer to Susie's question about the bag. The reason in that particular project that I chose to felt it was because I wanted a sturdier bag that wouldn't stretch out as much when you put stuff in it, because I wanted to make it a big bag. So felting it reduces the elasticity that crochet normally has. It makes it all stick together more. So, but you have to make it really big because when you felt it, it shrinks.
Yeah. And, I've seen some really amazing felted bags that are either crocheted or knit and then felted kind of as you have, but then incorporating like leather straps. And I find that it totally transitions the appearance of the knit and the crochet, and it gives it kind of like a high-end polished look. And especially when you incorporate maybe some leather pieces, again, you can get so creative and crafty with all this stuff. But I really like the felting a lot.
I started to felt it by hand, Kat, and then I got bored, so I threw it in the washing machine. I put it in a pillowcase so that it wouldn't shed wool anywhere, and then threw it in the washing machine and the dryer, and it came out as a bag.
That's so nice. And you made this project just recently, Pia?
No, I made this. I'm doing on my blog, I'm doing a crochet along that's all bags. And this was our first pattern. So I made it in January and we're actually finished with it this month. But that's why it's by my video spaces because
Yeah.
we've been working on it all month. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Tammy says, this is my first summit. I really loved it. And then Irene said, this is also my first summit. Great variety of material as well as live farms. So fun. Thank you. And for those of you who are attending this as your first summit, I'm so glad that you were able to be here. We really enjoy putting on these events. And at the end of the day, we just really want to provide a fun experience for members of the crochet and the knit community. So thank you for being here. Thank you for attending. And I think we've answered all of the questions. Carol says, thank you for motivating me to crochet. I've been in a slump. And, you know, I totally get that because sometimes I get in a slump too. And Pia, do you ever get in the slump from crochet
Oh my
or
God,
knit?
all the time. All the time. Sometimes I'm just sitting there like, there's nothing to do that I haven't done. And of course there is, but you don't think of it. And that's why these classes are great because they like introduce you to all these different ideas. Even if you've been crocheting forever and ever, you may never have made a slipper out of a rectangle before. And you're like, oh my God, that's a great idea, you know? And it just gives you that motivation again to get crocheting and making stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
and also,
beginning. Shelly, yes, I actually had a demo set up for you for that too. I wanted to show you how to do that. How to make how to decide how long to make your chain. Hang on, I've lost my camera here.
that's
1
okay.
second.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll just say what Peggy said. Peggy said, I've never done a summit, and boy, have I been missing out. I'll be doing all of them in the future, and we would love to have you at all of the future summits. We really work hard to get. What's really important to us is having really great instructors, and that's something that separates us from other tutorials that are out there. Is we want people who are used to teaching, and then making sure that we have good videography as well, so you can see all the different elements, and then bringing in fun interactive events like this. So definitely make sure to stay tuned because we've got more coming up. So it looks like, Pia, you got your camera going.
Yes. So, okay. The idea with crocheting a rectangle in the round is that every time you increase this way, you're also increasing the same amount this way, as long as you're using the same stitch, right? So if I increase by 1 inch or so, I didn't fold it perfectly, but by 1 inch in this direction, I'm also increasing by 1 inch in every other direction as well, right? It's increasing all the way around. So what you need to figure out is how much different do you want the length and the width? And that is how long you make your starting chain, because that difference will never change. So if this is 6 inches and this is, what is this, 3 inches, say, okay, this starting chain should be about 3 inches. And that difference will never change. It will always be 3 inches longer than it is tall, because as I add an inch here, I add an inch here. So that way you can determine, you know, what starting chain you want to start with and know that your dimensions will always be that much different. Did that help, Shelly? Hopefully it helped.
That helped me. That was a really good answer. We'll see what Shelly says. But no, that was very, very helpful.
Yeah, I saw that came up and I went looking and I'm like, okay, if I fold it just like
And,
this, I can show that. I forgot about it.
No, I know. Well, we've had a lot going on this live stream, so I'm glad you came
Yeah.
full circle. I'm not sure if hopefully Shelly's still on. She saw it. It kind of ties in well to Kayla's question, though. Kayla says, is there any way I can get notes on the things I've missed in this live stream? Will the live stream be available until midnight tonight, like the video classes? So actually, the live stream, my understanding is that it will take a little while to render. And I'm not, maybe Mike, you can jump in. I don't know if there's a recording that comes up right away on YouTube. Usually it takes a little bit of time to process. Everything will be available on this page until midnight tonight. If you do want access to the live stream and the video classes longer, the live stream will be in the all access pass as well. So hopefully that answers your question. And if the recording becomes available by YouTube, that's not really up to us, but if YouTube makes it available, then we'll make that available on this page until midnight tonight as well. All right. So let me see. I'm just looking to see if there's other questions. Actually, Josephine has one question. She says, is Tunisian crochet all rectangles?
Nope, absolutely not. Tunisian crochet is just as versatile as regular crochet. It's just different stitches. You can do all the same things with it.
Tunisian crochet is actually amazing. It's really like a combination of crochet and knitting. I love Tunisian crochet, and the texture is totally different than crochet. And actually, we had a summit on Tunisian crochet just recently. A few weeks ago, we had a really great summit all about Tunisian crochet. And I mean, there's dozens of, I mean, there's just so many stitches in Tunisian crochet, just like crochet or knit. It's this whole other area that you can explore. But I really like it because it's such a beautiful marriage between crochet and knitting. But yeah, it's a fun topic, and hopefully we'll run that summit again too. But it's a really cool thing to learn. Awesome. Okay.
Any good Tunisian crochet hooks you recommended? Honestly, the Denise interchangeables are really popular, but I don't have those. I don't do a lot of Tunisian. Maybe you can answer that one, Brittany.
Yeah, so there's I can't recall the name of the brand that we use. Maybe Jamie can Slack me the message, but it's off on the tip of my brain right now. But if you just go on Amazon and you search Tunisian crochet hooks, you'll be able to get a set on there. They're a little harder to find in person. So I would suggest ordering online. Amazon or Etsy, a number of Etsy sellers carry them as well. We have a Tunisian crochet kit that includes the hook and all of the classes from our summit that we can share information on as well. But if you just jump online, the one thing I will say is, like crochet and like knitting, you have to be aware of what hook size you need for that project. So it's not a catch-all. You're going to need more than one hook, depending on the project that you're actually looking to make. So hopefully that answered your question. Peggy says, is the Tunisian Crochet Summit in the All Access Pass? It's not. The Tunisian Crochet Summit isn't part of this summit. It's a summit that we had done previously. We do still have the classes available on our website for Tunisian crochets, if that is something you want to learn. And we can share some information on that. But typically how we work is we love to share these summits as a free event for the community over a 2-day period. But then we have our all access or masterclass pass. And that's when you make an investment and you can get all the classes and keep it forever. And when you do that, help support our business so that we can continue to make more great classes for you guys, more of these summits, and invest in more of these trainings. But we really love putting them on. And I see a few people mention that they attended the Tunisian Crochet Summit. But yes, that's different than the summit we're on currently, which is Crochet Anything with Rectangles Summit.
And Susan said she has the Denise set and she likes it. I like the idea of interchangeables because then you don't have to get different lengths and different sizes. You can switch out the tips, but I've never actually used a set, but we have one recommendation.
I love interchangeable as well. And actually, Pia, a few people are asking for the name of your blog.
Stitches and Scraps. It's the letter N, not the word and. So just go stitchesandscraps.com and you'll find me.
Awesome. Yes. And Pia's got some amazing posts on there, tutorials, and you've just spent the last few hours with Pia, so you know she's amazing now. So the blog. And it's just it's been a pleasure having you on here and just fun chatting with you and getting to hang out with everyone. And so stitchesandscraps.com. Yep. And you made it really easy because you've got a nice sign in behind you. I'm in a hotel, so my backdrop doesn't look quite as exciting. Let's see. So I'll read a few more comments and see if there's any last questions, and then we'll tie it up for my evening. It's 10 p.m. here. I think it's most of your mornings. Let's see. Kayla says, I have some Tunisian crochet hooks, but don't know what to do with them. LOL. When will there be another Tunisian Crochet Summit? We probably won't have another Tunisian Crochet Summit for another few months anyways, or perhaps even until beginning of next year, because we just ran it. But we do have the classes still available, and we are running summits on an ongoing basis. So it's just really important to check your email, and that's where we share all of the information on upcoming summits and different events we're running. And we really are, as a community at Crafts on Air and at Stitches, really trying to put on a lot of fun events for you guys. Just put a smile on your face, and we're doing that in a lot of different ways. So you can just keep an eye on your inbox. That's the best way to do it. We'll send out an email with an events calendar so you can kind of keep track of what's coming up. Okay. So let's see. Sheila says, thank you so much for the fabulous summit. Great way to spend a cold Sunday afternoon with great people and our favorite pastime. And it is nice.
You.
It's nice to see people from all around the world just kind of share that same interest, right? And that's such a beautiful thing about where we're at in the world right now. I'm in Saudi Arabia, Pia's in the United States. We've got people in Canada and Europe all over, all coming together to just kind of unite around something that we really love. Okay. So let's see here. Josephine says, thank you for the live summit.
Kat says, I find a lot of my hooks and needles in thrift stores. That is a great idea, because a lot of people just donate their parents, stuff.
Yeah.
And
you can find a lot of yarn there sometimes too. I've read some crazy stories.
I heard one of the dollar stores, I don't know if it was Dollar Tree or one of the other ones, but the dollar store was carrying mini skeins of yarn. Routinely, that people really liked this yarn. I don't even know if it had a brand. It was just like the dollar store yarn, and people really liked it.
Yeah, there's so many different places that you can get yarn and get good deals. And also, I want to give a shout out to local yarn shops, because local yarn shops have, small businesses have had a really hard time over the last few years. But I mean, especially local yarn shops are competing with big box stores. So if you've never been to a local yarn shop, it's a really, really cool experience to just go in there. The yarn that's in local yarn shops is really totally different than yarn that you will experience in a big box store. You can experience so many different fibers that aren't in a Walmart or a Dollar Tree. And there's nothing wrong with those yarns. I mean, especially we're all on a budget and we have to be conscious of that. But it is really cool if you're passionate about crocheting, you're passionate about knitting, go into a local yarn shop and just feel some of the different yarns, see some of the different colors. And also often these local yarn shops have such a fabulous community of people there as well that you can meet who share your same interests, ask questions. And I just wanted to give a shout out to local yarn shops, because the crafting community, it's a tight knit community, and it's just nice to support each other as much as possible and other members of the community. And
it's a great, if you can find a local yarn shop that has gift cards, that's a great thing to ask for birthdays and Christmas and things like that. Because I don't know about you, but everybody who knows me wants to give me yarn and they don't know what to give me.
Yeah.
And that is not a happy mix. So this way you can get, just a gift card to your favorite yarn shop, and then it's easy for everyone.
Yeah. And I totally agree. It's such a good gift, and it means a lot, and then you still get to choose what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Sheila says we should all be supporting our local yarn shops. Great for classes too. And that's absolutely true. It's just great for community. Leslie says my area used to have 2 local yarn shops, but they both closed. Not many other options nearby. So I miss feeling the yarns. And it is funny, as I started talking to more people in the community, I realized how many people had never actually been to a local yarn shop. And the people that I had talked to who had been to the local yarn shop, they were like, oh my gosh, I just didn't even realize that yarn could feel this way, because there's so many different types of yarns. You have to be conscious of going in there though, because then you will probably come out with a lot of different yarns.
Yes.
And then
sure.
A few people are asking about the yarn giveaway. So yes, we're absolutely doing the yarn giveaway. The winner will be announced. We're doing the draw at the end of the summit today. So we will announce it. I believe it's tomorrow via email. And just I want to make sure we're not confusing the two. So there's a lot of comments in here, and then just go to the very bottom, at the very bottom of the page that you're on right now. You can leave a comment there, and then that you'll be entered to win the $300 of yarn. And there's so much good yarn to choose from. So be sure to do that. And also, again, just keep an eye on your email inbox because we will announce the winner there. Okay. Just reading a few of the comments.
Yeah.
I went to a group at a yarn store once, but they were kind of not fond of me crocheting instead of knitting. I know there's, some dynamic.
It happens.
Yeah. Between crocheters and knitters. There can be some of that, but that's funny. I'm still convinced crocheting is actually more popular than knitting, but knitting is more popular in local yarn shops.
Knitting and crochet have different cultures around them in a lot of ways, I think. And if you do both, you really start to notice some of the differences in it. And yeah, there's definitely some snobbiness that happens, but there's also, I think you actually get that in both if you're in the right environments. Yeah. So I think, how do I put this? Some yarn shops are definitely not crochet friendly, and some yarn shops are definitely more crochet friendly. So try to find the crochet friendly ones.
Exactly. And, there are some lovely ones. I've never had a rough experience at a local yarn shop, but I have heard that before. But just go experiment, have some fun, take yourself on a field trip.
See if there's a yarn crawl in your area. A lot of the areas do yarn crawls, and that's a great way to check out all the different shops with special offers and stuff. Yeah, I did that, and the shops are very different. The whole atmosphere in the shop can be very different.
Yeah, and actually, I used to live in Los Angeles, and they have an amazing yarn crawl with the stores there. So a lot of different cities throw great events. Anyways, there's a ton to explore. We won't even get into trunk shows right now. It's a whole universe. But it's been so fun hanging out with you, Pia. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And also it was awesome having Scotty on and just watching all the videos and interacting with everyone in the comments, everyone who's left a question or a comment. It's been so fun hanging out with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. If this was your first summit, I hope you had an amazing experience. If you have been to many of our summits in the past, thank you for continuing to come back. And again, keep an eye on your inbox. We will send out an email with a schedule of our upcoming events so you can mark it on your calendar and get excited. And we'll keep these live broadcasts going because I had a great time and I'm so happy to see you guys did too. All right. Well, that brings us to a close of our live broadcast. I am Britt and Pia here. And I had a lot of fun hanging out with you on the Crochet Anything with Rectangles Summit. Have a really fantastic rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you on the next one.
Bye.